Thank you. Okay, welcome to the November 8th, 2017 Neshoba Regional School Committee regular meeting. Calling the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We've got citizens' comments on tap. Do we have any citizens with comments? No. We have citizens, though. I know you're a citizen.
Thumbs up on that.
But no comments.
Good on this side.
Nice.
All right, thank you.
You may have a comment now, though.
Okay, so I've got a couple of quick updates on the handy-dandy, don't make fun of me calendar. We are, the Neshoba Regional High School Advisory Committee is going to prepare and present their findings and recommendation at our next meeting. So that's going to move, again, from January back to November 29th at the next meeting. Meeting minutes. How's everybody's meeting minutes? Are we good? Are we up to date?
We're good.
Awesome. Good. Thank you. Thank you. And does anyone have any Tri-Town agenda items for next Wednesday? Mm-hmm. Next Wednesday's Tri-Town.
15.
Excuse me, because if you do, would you please funnel them to me and I'll get them over. I think we're getting close to the deadline to have those.
Oh, okay.
Right.
It's in Stowe.
It's in Stowe, 7 o'clock. MASC conference, so I know Mark and Steve both went, and wondering if you would just share a couple of quick updates on what the more compelling components of what you learned were this year, just with the rest of the committee. And I'm putting you on the spot.
Yes, but extemporized.
I'm going to be happy to help out. Can I join in?
Yeah, you can join in too.
I attended a thoughtful perspective and session on OPEB, other post-employee benefits, so different groups of people speaking, and that was just helpful to have a different angle on it. And there were some materials, and I think there will be emailed out or available for MASC presentation materials there. Set in on a session in which there's discussion about opportunities for looking at costs, savings, and actually Superintendent of Ashland was one of the members of that that table, and other numerous conversations with other school committee members throughout the state, of which one reassuring feeling as a consequence was the feeling that the problems we face are extremely similar to many other committees. They're not unique, and so there's much opportunity to share pleasure of solving them as well as difficulty of solving them.
Well, that's good. Not really, but
Right.
at least we're not alone.
Reassuring
Not
we're
alone, yeah.
I went to the MARS, which is the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools, meeting in the first morning on Wednesday, and there was a very thoughtful presentation about how the state process for foundation budgets, level setting for various towns can cause some disparity in how towns get assessed that the school committees has no control over, where the state is trying to catch up and make somewhat more equitable relationship between income in the towns and the assessed value of the towns.
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly a topic in Wachusett where they've had one town perennially turning down budgets, and it turns out a lot of the cause has to do with this leveling process where, through no control of the school committee's part, the state's asking that town to step up and
Really?
become more equitably participating. So that was informative and interesting.
That's a good one.
We also, all three of us went to the one MSBA session as well. I thought that was really good. I really enjoyed that session.
Right.
The other session that stands out for me was the one on opioid addiction. I don't know if I didn't see, it was a packed ballroom, you could have been lost in there, but it was an amazing session, and John Kelly spoke, Dr. John Kelly from Harvard, and really unemotional, just like, here's just the facts, and it was just like, oh my goodness. Marion Ryan spoke at that as well. That was also a really, really good session. Jeff Wilson, we were all there for dinner Wednesday night when Jeff Wilson presented, and kind of gave a bit of an update from the department lens, and I thought that was good. We had a couple of different speakers that night. Julie Hackett spoke, and then there was a guest speaker that spoke about civility. That was also an interesting, that was a very interesting
It's a timely
session
topic.
too. Yeah, it was really good. Overall, I thought it was a great conference. I mean, I certainly got a lot out of it, so.
Steve, do you have
I thought it was very good too. I remember the keynote speaker, Leggett.
Oh, right, Bill Daggett.
Was very, very good.
Yeah.
If you're not doing what you need to do tomorrow, then you're already 6 weeks behind, kind of thing. On computerization and using computerization to teach, and basically talking a lot about the idea that machines are going to do it all in the future, a lot, pretty much. Mark and I tended to go to some of the same sessions on finance and those kinds of issues, and the MSBA one was very good. It's a long process. I was kind of taken aback a little bit by the length of process and the fact that most school districts that submit an SOI to MSBA have to come back 2, 3, 4, 5 times before their SOI is even accepted for consideration. So that was an opener. But a lot of, I was very impressed with the conference
Good.
overall.
I was
All right.
insane. It was great.
Okay, thank you. Isabel, do you have something for us?
Barely. So the bands, the music department just had their concerts, and musical's not for a few weeks, or the ball play isn't for a few weeks, so there's not much there. And the athletics update was stolen by Miss Ridge, so she's actually she's gonna do a real one today. Like, yeah, she knows way more than I do. So I just wanted to say that we have 3 teams that are playing playoff games this week. So field hockey's playing tomorrow night, as well as girls soccer, and then football's playing Saturday, which you'll hear more about. And Shoba just ended the first quarter. We have a half day and have a few days off this week for parent-teacher conferences, but besides that,
That's it?
that's it.
All right. When is the fall play?
The fall play is the 17th and 18th, I believe. But
That's a great show, by the way. Noise is off. It's fun. It's smart. It's.
we have a school committee meeting before, like closer to that date, so I wanted to push that announcement.
Oh, okay. I won't say anything more about it. I'll let you do that. Okay. All righty then. Anything else, Isabel?
No.
Thank you so much. And superintendent's report.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm going to ask Rob Frieswick to come to the table, and Anne Marie Stoika. Anne Marie, of course, is well known to us. She is our Director of Human Resources, and I'm going to kind of tee it up a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to Anne Marie, and then we'll give kind of a couple of concluding remarks. So you know we've been through quite a process for our Director of Facilities, and we went out to look and brought a number of different folks in for interviews. Didn't feel that we found the right fit. We went back out again, and through that process, Rob kind of appeared. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about that in a minute, but I think, Anne Marie, you're going to introduce him, and then I'm going to go back after a couple comments.
I'm actually delighted to introduce Rob Frieswick to those of you who don't know him already. He's been appointed as our interim facilities director effective tomorrow. Looking forward to greeting him tomorrow morning.
Congratulations.
Right now, he's our head custodian for grounds and maintenance. Before he came into Shoba, he was the assistant superintendent at the Mount Pleasant Country Club in Boylston. He worked at a country club in Uxbridge, and he worked at the Pleasant Valley Country Club in Sutton, which, you know, was for many years a stop on the PGA Tour, so it's like top notch. He's taken turf management courses at the Stockbridge School of Agriculture at UMass Amherst. When we had our initial posting, we had 11 candidates, and we interviewed 5. We were like, We reposted, we got another 9 or 10 applicants, and we interviewed 4 of them. And then we really found that the best to offer was right in our own backyard and right in the family already. So at his interview, Rob impressed us with his initiative, his eagerness to embrace the responsibilities of the new position, also his vision for the facilities department, and his knowledge of our custodial staff, our school buildings, and our school campuses. So this is Rob, and we're delighted to have him.
So I'm going to speak about a couple of things too. So Rob, of course, was monitoring the process throughout, and I don't think initially he had I don't know if initially you thought about joining the process or not. And then he came to see me one day and he said, Brooke, he said, I've been watching this and I've been thinking a lot about this, and I won't share everything that was said in that one particular meeting, but he said, one of the things that stood out to me, he said, I know where we were, I know where we are, I know where we're going. I think I can help out. And, we talked a lot about it, even this morning, like I said to Anne, I offered him the position, like after we decided that that's the route that we were gonna go, I said, don't let him make a decision until I talk to him, because I wanted to lay out some things this morning. And I'm sure poor Rob sat there and thought, is she trying to discourage me from this? You understand how many mornings in the winter you're gonna be on the phone with me at 3:30 in the morning, like, are you up to this? And I said, you kind of sell your soul. As soon as you move into leadership, you kind of sell your soul to the organization because it requires so much of you. It's not a regular management job. And he said, no, I'm ready for this. And so when I came in and did the debrief with the team yesterday, after they did because we did, 4 or 5 interviews yesterday, right? And Rob was in the mix yesterday, and I went around to the team members that had done the interview, and I said, each one of you speak about this and what your thoughts are. And hands down, they all wanted Rob. So he's coming in. I think you're right. He was family already, and he's taking this big jump with us. And I think we're all ready to help support you and do whatever it takes to make you successful. So we are thrilled to have you on board, Rob. Thank you very much.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So I don't know if there's anything that you want to say a little bit to the school committee?
Yeah, I want to thank the school committee, for having me tonight. I want to thank the hiring committee, for giving me a chance, in this position. Thanks Superintendent Clenchey as well. I look forward to working with the staff, the administration, at the Neshoba, school district, and excited to build new relationships, in the tri-town of Bolton, Stowe, and Lancaster, with the administration and the community members. I feel over the past year and a half, I've seen a lot of change, a lot of progress in the facilities department. There's a lot of good programs in place now, and move forward and, increase, our goals with the facilities program. We have good head custodial staff. We have good custodial staff. Downstairs in the facilities office, we have Pam Sylvester, program coordinator, kind of behind the scenes, holds everything together for us, and is one unsung hero that I don't think gets enough recognition because a lot of people don't see what he does. But Jim Brigham, our electrician, he's kind of the mainstay here, and he's spearheading a lot of projects right now. And without him, this district and this facilities department would be lost. So if anybody sees Jim, just give him a pat on the back because he really deserves it. So.
Rob was also the fellow behind each one of those little displays, the fall displays in all the schools. That was his vision. He had an idea about what it should look like, and then just one day, and I said to him at a football game one night, I said, do you know where all those displays came from? Like, I've noticed them, like every school I've gone to. And he said, Brooke, I did. I said, you did? Said, yeah. And that was just your own initiative, and I think that, and I said that to you this morning, those are the things that we really, really like about you. So so we're so excited, Rob. So we thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate
Congratulations.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Terrific.
Okay, I'm going to just carry forward with my report. I too was going to bring up the MASS conference, and I just thought it was great. And it was really, really nice to have the two representatives there. So Mark and Steve, I know that it's a huge part of your life that you leave, like for 3 or 4 days there to go down to that. And when you were talking about long, I thought the days are long because it's all day and all night. I think people don't realize what those particular conferences are like, because you start out in the early, like that one session started I think at 10 of 8 that one morning, and we were still all together at like 10 of 8 that night and later. So, they're long days, but thank you so much. I really appreciated that. Just want to talk to one of the other things that I attend is the Worcester County Superintendent's Roundtable, and these sessions have been really, really good, particularly this year. We had the new president of Quinsigamon talk to us yesterday. Just did a great job, and we're always looking, of course, as a school district to see, can we do something more with dual enrollment and that kind of thing. So got a couple of ideas, not ready to bring them forward, but it's a lot of really, really rich discussion yesterday on that. Principals meeting. Today we had a really interesting presentation. I was talking to Chairman Ramosko about this earlier. We're coming up against, within the district, more and more vaping And I guess when I think of vaping, I think of those folks who are choosing to vape rather than smoke a real cigarette, and that's kind of, unfortunately, naively, kind of where I thought it stopped. And I didn't realize the breadth of this. And as we started looking into it more and more, we thought, you know what, we need to bring an expert in here and talk to us about this. And our own SRO, Casey Hool, also came in this morning with us. It was an awesome, 20 minutes to half an hour, and just talked about it. Like, I did not realize, for example, that you could get the marijuana now in the liquid form to smoke from these, and we would never know it because it's odorless. It was really fascinating, this meeting this morning, and I said to Chairman Ross, we might think about just having them come in and do like a mini presentation for the school committee, just as a bit of a PD moment. It's not something we have to do, but it was definitely of interest, and it's maybe not a bad thing to put on air so that, you know, our parents can listen to this, because I really thought it was only this big an issue. I didn't realize how big the issue was. So interesting for us to kind of think on. Maybe you could reach out to Chairman Romasko and with some thoughts on that.
Why don't we just add it?
You want to add it?
I mean,
Sure.
do you guys, what do you think? Because,
No, I think I didn't know you could get the liquid.
well, I think things have kind of fast forwarded.
Right. I wonder how many parents are aware of that, and how do you know to check for it? 'Cause
Yeah, and the other thing too that was abundantly clear, because when the first time we kind of came up against it in the district, I started to go online and take a look, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought it was. It was like, and then she came in this morning, and but between she and Casey Hool, our SRO, they brought in lots of like samples or exemplars, or whatever you want to call them. You know, yeah, not that we were able to use them all.
I'm just trouble with those samples.
You know, it was interesting as she kind of shifted around and you looked, and I mean, you really, the one, for example, that Casey had looks like a flash drive that you just stick in here, and then you open it up, and I think it's like the top piece looks like a little miniature fuse is what it really looks like, and there's like 60 puffs in it, and it's only this big. I mean, it's amazing, and they're made to look like pens that your kids are carrying in their backpack or in their pocket, and it's just fascinating to watch this. So the person that came and spoke to us was from UMass, and just did a really, really good job. Just the facts, just quick presentation, just the facts. So we can add that.
I think that's, Neil, I think that's what we need, is just the facts.
That's another thing, we need to take a look at our policy, which we redid last year.
Yeah.
She actually brought that up, yeah, and
Because
we actually took a look at it right away today, and there's just one little piece, but you're absolutely right, there's one little piece there that she suggested that we add to it.
Well, not only that, but we have vaping just listed under smoking as just like a nominal offense, and not the crossover to drug use for that. And then I don't know, our athletic director probably explained whether that's getting rolled into the MIAA rules too.
I believe it is, actually. She had a copy of it today, too.
Yeah, I gave the case this morning. Already is in the MIA rules.
Awesome. So that's what we've reflected before you came, when we made the change. A lot of the MIAA we tried to align with, and
Okay.
Okay, the last thing, I'm going to ask Tanya to come to the table just for half a minute, and there's a little bit of a flyer here I'm going to just distribute. And so we're going to talk just really briefly, and Tanya, I'm going to tee it up, and then I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. So, you know, in lieu of, it's not really in lieu of, but it's kind of in addition to the notion of a pep rally. I think that the high school is really looking at more of the larger celebration of families coming together. What could that look like? And the notion kind of started last year, like, you know, and I think some kids had come to talk to you or whatnot, some captains had come to talk to you and whatnot, but it didn't get the traction necessarily last year like it did as it kind of rolled further into the summer, and you start talking about it more and more, and then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, this looks like a really, really good idea. And I think the one thing I would want to say that I find particularly impressive is the number of individuals or organizations that are volunteering services or resources or goods to this event. And so it's really shaping up to be something special. So maybe, Tanya, talk a little bit about the history. I know really you're kind of a key person behind the scenes on this, and I know Brian Cody's done a lot of work on this as well, between the two of you. So maybe just talk about it, and then if we've got questions, we can read them.
So the first time this came about was actually 5 years ago, when the kids came to me and said, can we have a bonfire for homecoming? So I was like, I don't know, like, can we have a fire on campus somewhere? No. It wasn't gonna work in the show, but it was gonna cost a lot of money, so then it kind of faded away. Last year, student council wanted to do a bonfire for homecoming. They started in the research, and again, it came to the same roadblocks. Where are we gonna have a fire on campus? And what is that gonna look like? So it kind of just faded away last year. It came up again this summer when I was doing my leadership workshop in August. The kids said, Miss Rich, is there any way, can you try to figure this out? So I said, I'll look into it. So Brian Code and I started talking, and we talked to Rob, and we were like, can we burn on campus anywhere? We don't want to burn our grass fields because they look fantastic since Rob has taken over. We don't want to burn the parking lot because then we're going to, ruin the asphalt wherever we do this. So that's when Brian reached out to one of the selectmen in Lancaster, and we started talking to them about the fairgrounds. A lot of behind-the-scenes meetings and talking to different people, and finally, after a meeting with the selectmen, the Lancaster Police, Lancaster Fire, members of the Bolton Fairgrounds Organization, and the school, we met about 2 weeks ago, and they said that this is something we can definitely pull off. And a lot of people were stepping up and donating different goods. Lancaster Fire is going to donate a fire truck and firemen to watch the fire. Ryan Aldridge Construction out of Lancaster is helping move Jersey barriers, the stage to the up front, helping with parking. He got a whole trail load of pallets, 53 pallets, for us to use to burn. Youth football is donating their light towers, so we can have light around the area as well. And those are just a few of the people who have volunteered some time and effort. So then we start talking, okay, let's take this big fall celebration that's going to be a community event, and let's tie it together with our pep rally. So we're going to take it off campus, we're going to go to the fairgrounds. We're planning on this event to be from 6 to 9 o'clock at night. We're going to be doing, we got Joel Bates as our MC and DJ, perfect fit for him. From 6 to 7, we're looking at kind of like, it's almost like just hanging out. We're going to have some food trucks there. Our booster club is involved. We're going to have yard games, the PE department. We've got can jam and cornhole and different, outside activities the kids can play. At 7 o'clock, that's when we're really getting into our pep rally activities. And we're going to do the same kind of things that we usually do. We're going to recognize the band members, the chorus members, our EMTs, and then we go through, I do a recap of all of our fall sports and recognize all senior athletes for our fall teams. We're also going to have the football coach speak and the captain speak. That's always part of our Thanksgiving rally leading into the Thanksgiving game. Our cheerleaders are going to be doing some cheers, and hopefully, depending on the grass and the weather, we're going to have them perform. We're hoping the chorus is going to sing our national anthem, and the pep band's going to come and play a few songs as well. So from like 7 to 7:30, it's going to be pep rally events that we recognize and honor the success of all of our fall teams and students. We're also kind of hoping that maybe we announce our senior superlatives if we have everything ready to go from the yearbook, and that can be like the big announcement of who wins those superlatives. And the kids asked again about, can we do the tug of war? And I think as long as the weather is cooperative, we're going to be able to, because it's always the fall captains versus the staff, and they beat us every year, and a tug of war. And then at 7:30, we're going to light the bonfire. Like I said, the firemen from Lancaster are willing to help us with all that. And then from 7:30 to 9, it's going to be music playing and just kind of hanging out, and and we're hoping that this is a community event. We want families to show up. We want alum to come back. We want community members. We would love to see you guys there. Just something that we can celebrate everything together as one whole community event, because we don't get to do that. So we thought this might be a nice way to start something, a new tradition.
Thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions? Neil?
First of all, I love the idea. I know that there's been mixed feelings around.
Absolutely.
Because, change is always evil. I do have a question about the $5 though.
Yep.
Per person. I'm thinking, people are coming in from the district, if they want to bring their kids, which they may want to have them involved, and that can get pretty pricey if you bring a larger family or something in there. And I don't have any comment beyond that, but just $5. And then the other thing is the liability aspect. I know that we're covered for going out to various events, but are we covered in our insurance policies for this? And if not, do we need to get a one-time event rider?
We'll make sure we check into that.
We've already done it.
Okay, they've already done it.
I've already worked with Michelle. It's all set. It's because that had to be part of the rental agreement for the fairgrounds.
Perfect.
So that was taken care of. And as for the $5, we went back and forth with this because as the first time we're doing it, we thought maybe we could go out and get donations so there wasn't a cost. But with just getting the okay about 2 weeks ago, we thought it was too soon to go out and try to get, do a fundraiser to fundraise for this. And there's going to be expenses for this. I mean, just look at the porta potties to get, to have the event for those 3 hours. It's $400 for porta potties. The food trucks, there's a minimum that the food trucks need to sell, so we have to work with the food truck companies on that. Right now, I've got some light towers that are being donated, but I think I'm probably going to have to rent 1 or 2 light towers, because we want to make sure there's enough light. Yes, the fire is going to provide light, but we want to make sure there's light in the parking area and around, so we see what everyone is doing. So that's, I would love to say that moving forward, we don't have to have a cost. But right now, because it's the first time, we definitely need to start with something to make sure we can cover the cost for that night.
Lynn?
Were you asking if there's a family cap?
I wanted to know the details of it, but that's...
And that's something, we can definitely, Brian, I can definitely come up with a family cap. That's something easily we can do and, put that together.
So clearly there's expense with this that's involved in it, and I think the timeline is short, but I'm with Neil too on there's a way to find a way to raise money.
Absolutely.
For next year. If this is successful and you guys want to do it again, well, let's face it, if the kids want to do it again, right?
Yep.
It's their pep rally. If there was a way to do that or, take a little bit out of somebody's budget. I'm looking at you. I know.
No, and that's our plan. Like I said, it was more of we wanted to get this off the ground. We've been talking about it for, like I said, started 5 years ago. So more of like, let's how can we get this done?
I think what I didn't know, because I've heard the same things that, Neil, you've heard, is that the kids wanted this.
That's where it came from first. And I actually met with the fall captains today, and I was like, listen, I said, I know there's a lot of students that are upset, but I said, this came from a group of students. Like, I didn't just come up with this random idea, because to have it in the gym would probably be a lot easier to plan. But I said, you guys gotta help out here, and they were all excited, and they said, yes, we're gonna talk to our teams, we talk to our friends, like, this is a good idea. We did ask for it, we do want it, it would be cool. Everybody loves a bonfire.
And everybody's included, there's no group that would be excluded?
Correct, everybody's included.
So it's not just sports, it's drama?
Well, it's the school. It's the school community.
Yep.
And how about,
so people like Brian Boyle would be there.
Well, specifically, like, kids in the SPED program and so forth, are they going to have access to be able to get there and
absolutely
participate?
Yep, and I've actually, Brian and I have been working with the Best Buddies leaders, because we were talking about, there's been like some ideas around, do we want to do a pie in the face contest again that they've done a few years ago, because a few kids keep telling Mr. Cody they want to shove a pie in his face again.
Everyone wants to shove a pie in.
Everybody wants to throw a pie. So we are trying to figure out if there's something, we want to do with the fall celebration, but we're also going to look at doing something for winter and spring seasons too, because most schools do something every season. But right now, we only celebrate the fall, where we should be celebrating the whole year. So we've got that in the back of our pockets trying to plan as well.
Sure.
All right, Isabel.
Oh, just as a student at Neshoba, also I'm a class officer at Neshoba, so just like in the sense of people meeting, we were all talked to. I know the senior class officers were talked to, and I think all the other class officers at their weekly meetings were talked to as well about this idea, kind of trying to suss out if it was going to be a good idea or not. And I know that the rest of our executive board totally agreed, and we thought it was a good idea to move forward. So it was definitely, I think that as much as there were a lot of students maybe a little bit upset about it, I think there were a lot more students that were kind of the silent majority in this case.
So it's kind of a Neshoba thing to be community, right? So I'm gonna guess that you guys would be talking to the kids that have concerns to hear what they are.
Yeah.
And then bring them back to the administration so it can be addressed.
Yeah, we've discussed it. It's really everyone just doesn't like change. Everyone's like, but it's always been in the gym. Well,
but this is Neshoba, and for the change is the name of the game. But all right, I really appreciate your perspective on it, and thank you for your efforts, and we're looking forward to seeing the results of it.
Thank you, Tanya, I appreciate it.
You got it.
And that's it for my report tonight.
Well, that's good. That was a long one, but it was a good one. No, don't be sorry. It's good. All right, so we're going to move into new business and the appointment.
Yes.
I know, should everybody get up and do a happy dance? Of the nurse leader recommendation. So the school committee is responsible for approving the nurse leader. And is this our nurse leader?
This is our nurse leader.
Hi! Welcome!
Thank you.
Yay! Okay, end right quick before I say something else.
You know, but before I introduce you to Lisa, I would tell you, you know, we've joked a lot about me being the interim nurse leader and, you know, going to the nurse leader district meetings and feeling like, you know, one of these things is not like the other and trying to just keep things. You know, they would talk about some of their nurses thing and be like, oh, that's gross. But the fact is, I got to know the 9 nurses of the Neshoba district a little bit better than I had ever before, and I've got to tell you that they are top-notch. They're so wonderful. I think really if we didn't have such first-rate nurses in each of our schools, we wouldn't have been able to gotten through this period without a nurse leader as smoothly as we did. So I just wanted to give a hats off to our school nurses because they are really very, very, all kidding aside, they are very, very good school nurses. But this is Lisa Brault-Golbicki. She's our new nurse leader / coordinator of nursing and health. She did some emergency room staff nursing and pediatric nurse manager experience. She's worked most recently as the nurse coordinator for the Lowell Public Health Department. Her duties there were to manage and direct the nursing services for the City of Lowell Health Department. One of her most recent projects was to implement an asthma surveillance program in the Lowell School Health Unit, which resulted actually in a decrease in the number of absences with the students with asthma. She's an adjunct nursing professor at Middlesex Community College. She has some public school classroom experience, having taught health assisting at the Greater Lawrence Vocational Technical High School. She has a special interest in disaster and emergency response, and she actually spent several weeks in New York City at Ground Zero after 9/11. She's a registered nurse, and she's a licensed Massachusetts school nurse. She has a Bachelor of Science degree from the College of St. Joseph in Cincinnati, and a Master of Science in Nursing with a specialization in education from Walden University. And she was welcomed by the school nurses on Monday on her first day. They shared lunch with her, and they sent her a beautiful bouquet of flowers to welcome her to the Neshoba district.
And they went, phew.
So we welcome her to Neshoba.
Thank you. Lisa, I said to you earlier, I mean, this has been a long search for us. So, you know, this school committee knows that this has been a long search for us. And as I had shared with you, we were waiting for you. At the end of the day, we were waiting for you. We did a lot of interviews. We spent a lot of time, as Anne-Marie said, with our other nurses looking for just that right fit. And I believe with all my heart right now, you are the right fit for us. So we are thrilled to have you on board. Anne-Marie is particularly thrilled to pass the nurses cap back. Yeah, so we thank you so much.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of the district. It's I've only been here since Monday, but what a warm welcome from all staff members. It's been overwhelming. The nursing staff already out and running to the schools, and they've been very welcoming. They have a lot of great ideas that they want to see happen within their office, but some of them are just absolutely beautiful and they're running smoothly, and I'm looking forward to a lot more interactions with all the community members.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Lisa? Other than we're just also thrilled to have you here.
So I have to ask something,
Sure.
and I'm doing this in public, so sorry, but are you from Cincinnati or?
I am not, no. I'm from Drake, Mass area. I live in Pelham now. I went out there after traveling around quite a bit and finished my bachelor's degree in nursing there. And I stayed with Shriners Burn Hospital for quite a while, and I worked there in Boston as well. And then went back for my master's degree in education because it was nurses educate every day when they crush their threshold, and really liked it with a little bit of curriculum development. So I've taught quite a while too. I taught at Neshoba Regional Technical High School and the health careers for high school students, and then at Greater Lawrence as well. And I enjoy the classroom as much as this, but I think a little bit with my own ADHD, I need to be moving more and not in a classroom as much. And I enjoy developing programs. I did a lot for the City of Lowell. We had over 30 schools, 16,000 students, so a little bit on a larger scale, but enjoyed those programs to enhance the health and wellness in the schools in order to achieve academic success for students.
So that's kind of cool, because we love programs that are targeted to student need.
Yes.
A quick one, and then I'll. now, you know, I just got myself thrown off here, so programs, what was I gonna say? Neil, go ahead and I'll.
So, is this, are you going to be picking up from where things were left off as far as like the youth risk survey and some of the mental health things that were being done and so forth?
Yes, I'm trying to filter through all of that now to see where it was completely left off and where I can start and pick up from.
Awesome.
I've made a lot of outreaches already today to our health e-documentation, as well as getting Medicaid billing, and then moving on to those others. I know a big one that I'm hearing, Buzz, is the emergency planning, also that schools are asking for. So that is something that I did within the city of Lowell that we worked very hard with over a few years. So I have a lot of resources already in place for that, that we can somehow make it fit with what this school district needs are. Based on that.
I think too,
They'll be quite different than.
the other thing I'd say, Neil, too, is Donna left really extensive notes. Like really extensive, like we're talking like 25 pages worth, like.
Yeah, I'm on page like 13. But a lot of it I've done before, so it's familiar to me, where I've been in the nurse leader role in the past and familiar with the grants that we have and things like that. So she made it very smooth for me to come in.
So once you get your legs under you, we have an emergency response task force, and my son
Yes.
Lisa's gonna be heading that up.
Yeah, we haven't pulled that, that hasn't been as top of a priority right now.
No,
some of the
no.
other, But yeah,
Completely understand, just to raise it so that
Yeah.
when you're ready to go,
yeah.
we'll assign someone from the school committee.
It's also inside that, the diatribe that she's working through right now.
I'm really looking forward to this. I can't wait for you to
She's gonna-
start.
yeah, she's gonna be great.
All right,
Mark?
so,
I think Mark had a
Just
question.
a comment of welcome. I'm impressed and find it reassuring that you've had a great amount of public health experience as well as social experience and also in-school experience. So I think it's great that you bring all of these skills and experiences to our school. Just thank you for stepping up to our organization.
thank you so much. All right, so what do you need from us?
Basically, I'm making the recommendation that we move Lisa's name forward for the position of the district nurse leader for Neshoba Regional School District.
So I think one of the school committee needs to move that, needs to.
Yeah.
So what we need to move.
I'm making the recommendation, you need to move it.
Right,
Lynn just moved it.
So moved.
you did. Okay. I guess- Okay, who seconded it? It's like happening. Lisa, clearly, I mean, this is a formality, right? Steve seconded it. Any questions, comments? So glad you're here.
Thank you.
Can't wait to introduce you to the community. Cannot wait. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so much.
Anne Marie.
Appreciate
Thank
it,
you,
Lisa.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay. Extended day update.
Wonderful, we're gonna have you come to the table, and Pat's gonna come to the table as well. And do we have the?
I can plug in there.
Thank you. So Laura's gonna, yeah, she's already got it up there for you. So both Laura and Pat are gonna go through this and do a bit of a presentation, kind of an update for you, and then open it up to questions. And I think, Pat and I were talking about it earlier, I think that we'd ask that Laura kind of go through everything first, and then leave the questions to the end if we can, just to be expedient with our time. So, Laura, we're going to turn it over to you, and if you can get it started, please, that'd be great.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I've been so excited about being able to present about the program that I actually couldn't sleep at night. I was like tossing and turning between looking at my website and the things that people are doing, and so it's nice to be able to share all the fun things that are going on. Okay, so that's, let me just see which one, this one? I'm supposed to do a practice one.
No, it's to the right. Yeah, right there.
Okay, that was just a practice. Okay, all right, so this is just us, and we did have this little music blurb to go with it, but Pat said no, not to do it, although she was humming to it the whole time we were going through the presentation. Okay, this is my good friend Lily, and I feel like it's my job to ensure that her time at the Extending Learning Program is an opportunity. and I take that very seriously when Lily asks for things. For working families, after-school programs are not part of the solution, they are the solution. 10 years ago, the basic need for after-school programs was simply to provide a safe place for children while their parents worked. Although this need is still an expectation, it is not the only need. Education has changed and so has family dynamics. Schools now have technology, lots of technology, which has added another component to the 3 R's. Working families consist of 2 working parents. These changes have created a huge opportunity for the extended day programs to step up to the plate and become extended learning programs. It's just some dynamics of our locations. We have 2 locations in the center, 1 in Lancaster, 1 in Emerson. Each location of each town has its own before-school program, and we have 3 enrichment academies that run during the vacation academy weeks. This is our vision. The extended learning program took on this challenge and created a program that is more than a safe place, but an opportunity. One that strives to provide experiences that help its participants to be more confident, more skilled, and better prepared for the future. An a la carte program that offers its participants and parents the choices that they would choose if these opportunities were available during the hours of 3 to 6. We'll walk down memory lane here. The program grew. Tuitions increased to reflect the growth. And of course, the numbers increased. But I couldn't do it alone, so I reached out to my parents, my students, and community to find out what they wanted and needed in an extended learning program. And through yearly parent-student surveys, observations, conversations, and community outreach opportunities, the program evolved and continues to evolve. What I learned was there was a need for a before-school program, better communication, more effective billing system, a separate program and location for 4th and 5th grade students in Stowe. And more enrichment opportunities was also a very popular demand among students, parents, and community. These opportunities grew slowly as the system was developed to maintain sustainability for new enrichment component that my parents and students requested. This system required outsourced programs, those that were requested that did not have in-house resources or instructors for these, for instance, like an archery program or a tennis. We just didn't have an instructor on hand. These programs were offered with a fee. The fee covered the instructor, operational costs, and allows a small push to be put back into the extended learning program to cover the cost of half-day presentations. The half-day programs, we have almost 1 a month, and they're 6-hour days. So something to kind of juice it up is nice. These opportunities are optional, and all are provided from parent and student requests gathered from yearly surveys, conversations, observations, and outreach programs. These opportunities are in addition to the many diverse opportunities that my amazing staff offers daily. Also umbrella under the extended learning program are our famous enrichment academies. These too have grown in numbers and popularity. Student requests and community input is just as important as parents. The students ask for it, and I try to get it because they are my customers. These are some of the programs. I'm not going to go over them all. I would love to, but these are some of our community outreach programs that are successfully already implemented. Basically, the community just wanted a piece. They wanted to be involved, and I loved it, and the kids love it. It's a win-win for everyone. Here's a few comments from my parent survey from 2016-2017. Most of these are, some of them are positive. A lot of these things have already been done. Some of them are things that they would like me to do that I may be working on. Some of them I couldn't. Swimming classes is a tough one. Working on it, that's a tough one. Looking ahead, there's many wonderful things brewing. A tutoring program with the high school, community service component for 4 and 5, a junior shop program. We're having the big Thanksgiving feast in Lancaster next week. Just a few things brewing. This is a this represents the new billing program, My School Bucks, which has been very, very successful. It features auto pay, 90% of our parents are taking part in it, and 12% of our parents have already paid for the tuition upfront. Here's a few interesting figures, just in case. And the most important part, a day in the life of the extended learning participant. It's an exciting day and it's an exciting life. My students would come in, if yours an extended learning, Pat's going to be our model. If she came in, our staff would greet her, they would take attendance with their handy dandy clipboards, and then they would bring them into their place where they're, the cafeteria or the gym, their main headquarters. They would get their bag to put their stuff in. Oh, Pat Maroney has her own bag. Because we don't have lockers or cubbies, we developed this system, parent request. They wanted someplace to, and it's legit, they wanted someplace to put the kids' stuff, that it was off the floor, that if they came in, I mean, I saw parents like digging for shoes, it was heartbreaking. So everything's in here. It's also a great case of an emergency. If a parent comes in and needs to retrieve their children's belongings quickly, there it is. Pat, I can get your stuff, you're out of here. Or an administrator needs to come in, so it's really, these bags cost $1. And believe it or not, they last all year. So that's been very, very efficient. So they come in, they put their bags in, then they go outside. There's a group that will come in at 3:30 if they're participating in, this is the winter schedule, it's a little bit different than the one that was just on the website because I changed it for the winter because of the time change. So if they're participating in an enrichment activity that's outsourced, they come in from 3:30 to 4:30, they'll have their snack, and they'll go to, this is STEM, that's happening at all the schools right now. She does a weekly newsletter, so that's one of the programs they'd come in for. If they're not participating in an outsourced program, they stay out till 4. Then they come in from 4 to 4:15, they have their snack. Then from 4:15 to 5:15, they have either homework club, an enrichment activity that one of my staff is offering, because those don't require registration, or free play. And then from 5:15 to 5:45, there's more free play. And from 5:45 to 6, there's cleanup and departure. That schedule is posted on our website. That's the fall one. In your packet, you'll have the winter one. The sites pretty much follow it. There might be a little variation, but that's pretty clear, so that parents can pick up accordingly. In celebrating success, we've had a lot of successes. These are some of our successes. Just to highlight a few things, Bolton is participating in our local food drive. They're collecting items for the community. They entered the town scarecrow contest, almost won. It was pretty exciting. They'll be offering, again, the Red Cross babysitting class, which offers CPR, AED, and first aid training for my 4th and 5th grade students. Bolton has its very own Destination Imagination team, which I hear might win this year. Might go into states, that's their goal. Lancaster has a Thanksgiving family feast happening on the 16th. They've assembled a huge bulletin board in the cafeteria, which is a wall of thanks. All the children put little feathers on for something they're thankful for, and the whole school's involved. We're all in. So I was very excited about that. The students have formed their own safety committee, which they'll be reporting to me with little reports, weekly reports. I was very excited about that. Stowe has its sewing program, a veterans writing programs going on, theater program, science and STEM program. The new program, Hale, is booming. All our programs are full. It has a theater program, a sewing, mad sewing on sewing machines, wonderful to see, a mock trial program, and actually a mad science program, which is they're building and doing all kinds of amazing things. So that's doing really well. My final thoughts. I see the Extended Learning Program as an incredible opportunity. I will continue to provide positive opportunities that empower our students to be confident, productive, and motivated individuals. That's a parent comment. And finally, in your packet, I wanted to share and acknowledge my devoted staff, who are truly the superheroes of my program. They impress me every day with their devotion to my students. And finally, what I've learned in going to my 5th year as an administrator, a good administrator staff follows him or her, but a great administrator staff walks beside him or her. And that's that's it for me. I have a packet for you, which is a printout from the website, our tweets, which if you want to visit, see our real life, the tweets have all pictures from our site. And I included a schedule. My staff emails out a weekly schedule to the parents. I included an example of one so the parents know what's going on each week. And if a picture's worth 1,000 words, this was it. This is Susan, who's my site coordinator in Stowe. And she's not reading a story to my little guy. He's a struggling reader. She's encouraging him to read. And I have this in my office because I feel like I've done something right when I see that. So I included that in your packet. Any questions?
Wonderful. Well, I think last year when you came to present to us, I remember one of the questions was, I just want to know what you do. And I think this year you really did a great job giving us an overview of what is the program, what are the components of the program, how does it work. So I truly appreciate the overview that you've provided, I really do. Anybody have any questions? Neil?
Because it's standard. Laura, you obviously put a ton of work into this, and I really appreciate each year going over this stuff and just seeing how much
I love it.
Effort from everyone. Yeah. Now, one of the things we had talked about after the forensic audit was dealing with the fiscal aspect of this being like a standalone type of thing. So I wasn't sure if this was going to be a fiscal presentation or not, but I see that there's some fiscal numbers. There's some numbers that are in here, and specifically, there's one that says extended day $588,612. I didn't know if that was revenue or cost, because it said an increase of 2%, projected increase. Again, I didn't know if that was cost or revenue.
That does represent an increase in the revenue, the projected revenue from last year to this year.
Okay.
So I will tell you right now, without the offset of the revenue source for our regular appropriation, that the program is supporting itself and will continue to do so.
When we say supporting itself, so I think of that as salary, benefits.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we're not there.
That's not fair.
We're not there yet.
Facilities,
Yes.
fully loaded,
in
it's a fully loaded cost.
Yes, at this point.
Good.
Anything else?
For facilities, in the budget this year, if you look at the extended day budget, you will see that there is an allocation for facilities and benefits. Typically, the people that work in that program don't receive benefits because they don't qualify for them, you know, as far as like health insurance goes, but there are only a few people. But as far as facilities costs, we share some of the costs.
Okay, so it's self-sustaining.
Yes, it is self-sustaining. Yes.
Lynn?
I just want to clarify, it's self-sustaining with the offsets, or it's going to be self-sustaining as you go forward?
It will, there was an offset in the fiscal year 17 budget of $215,000. It was a revenue source.
Right.
And that made it not self-sustaining because that was an expenditure against the revolving
Out
fund.
of the program and
Right.
put it into.
Oh, that's
the history.
This year,
Remember, that's the history.
this year we were on target to make money. I mean, you know, we'll have some, not to make money.
Yeah.
We will have money left at the end of the year for startup costs, and that's what our goal is. We don't want the program to be so expensive that, you know.
I didn't know that it was revolving account.
Well, that actually is kind, and maybe this is not the time we can have this
Right.
at another level, but
maybe.
But my question
Yeah.
is, because this is something that's, I think, worthy to have, but at the same time, it's self-sustaining, and I'm wondering if there's a way to break it out from the district budget completely. so that it's not tied into our budgetary items. And the reason I say that is because if it's broken out and it's set up structurally as a separate entity, then if it's not performing in the future, funds can't be taken from one portion of the district budget and put into that program like they were in the past. And then likewise, they can't be taken out. It protects the program because you can't pull out and do any offsets that way. And that way, great, you're growing a little bit of a nest egg. You have some reserves. So now you can go back and reassess the costs and perhaps bring costs down based on, so I think it just gives more, not manipulation, but more ability for the program itself to grow and thrive. And at the same time, it protects the district from anything. So I don't know if we can have a conversation offline.
We actually already are in that space because it's running out of a revolving fund. So it is on its own entity right now.
But it's part of the budget. I would like to see it taken
We're
out
in
of.
control of the revolving fund as well.
All right, so.
I'd like to see that taken.
So I think that's a conversation for a budget and warrant, so you guys take that and have your discussions.
Yep.
Because Pat will be there too.
I just have something I wanted to bring up. Laura, one of the things that's not being asked, but I know it's been on their minds, is we added a little extra support for your unit this year in terms of some admin support. Maybe talk about why you appreciate that, or the work that she does.
2 minutes?
Yeah, and I included her in if you wanted to review too. Leah is been added. Tom and I share her, Chef Tom. And she handles all the financial parts of the program, the billing, anything that's to do with the money, the billing, the registrations and all that. And it's been amazing because that's like an all-day job right there. I mean, even just responding to the emails and the parents, that was something the parents asked for. They wanted a more efficient system, more visible. And we went to the My School Bucks, which they're familiar with, and they wanted a quicker response, time for, questions about their billing, which they get. And they wanted, and from this end, we wanted more spreadsheets and things like that, which this program provides.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
So, Neil, thank you for bringing that up, and I'm going to leave that with you. It's got to be really quick because we're running behind. We've got MCAS to get to.
What's ELP?
Extended Learning Program.
Okay.
Sorry, I was running out of room.
Thank you for coming.
Good job, Laura.
Appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
capital plan update. We're going to move on into the next area, if that's okay.
So we'll have you kind of start and just talk it through quickly because we want to get caught up a little bit on time here, Pat.
Sure.
And then I'm just going to add one or two quick thoughts at the end.
Okay, so basically, Alita's bringing up the spreadsheets right now. What I did was I went through last year's capital plan and compared that to what I had on as projects for this year. I've gone around to all of the buildings. Some of the work was done by Jeff before he left. Some of the work is continuing to happen.
In progress.
Yeah, unfortunately, this time of year, everybody is looking for quotes on the same things we are. So for Lancaster, I have a quote. I have a request for fiscal year 19 that I'm working on. You can look at the different items. If you have any questions on anything in particular, I'd be happy to answer them. Stowe, still waiting for quotes on 3 major items, and I just have one that is actually it's from the previous year, so this is still ongoing in Stowe. Bolton, I'm near complete with everything in Bolton. If you have any questions about any of the items in Bolton, please ask them. I'm waiting for one capital item. And as far as the high school goes, we have a couple of big items. One of them would be the leaching field. That's considered a capital item for the next fiscal year. That it may change. I've talked to the DEP. They will review where we are with our high school construction, new construction or not, and decide whether or not they'll grant us an extension or not, if that were to come to fruition. We have some floor repairs and a replacement of hot water tank that is definitely needed and probably should be done as soon as possible. So that will definitely be in the budget for this year as a capital item for the high school. I don't think it could even wait, to tell you the truth, for the construction project to be completed. As far as district-wide capital, basically what I have is a couple of items, the replacement of our vehicles. We've looked long and hard at our vehicles and tried to make an assessment of how long they're going to last. I have 2 vehicles scheduled for fiscal year 19. I'm looking for a used facilities vehicle for the facilities director to drive around town with, and of $12,000, and I'm looking for the replacement of the pickup truck, which we have not replaced because we purchased the van last year because that was more of a need. If anybody has any questions about that. One other thing too that I wanted to mention, and Brooke, you and I had spoken about this, MSBA.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. Yeah,
is about to come out with all of the results of their 5-year evaluation. Basically, they came out last fall and they looked at all of our buildings and made an assessment of, the condition that everything's in, and this could work in our favor when it comes time to go before them, with an SOI. I'm hoping that it's where we want it to be, so that we could, move forward and not have to go through it multiple times, as I believe, Mark, you were talking about.
Actually, it was Steve, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
It was Steve. Oh, Steve,
yeah.
You were talking about that, and
So, and I'll just break on that too. So MSBA every 5 years goes through this cycle, and they're just wrapping up this cycle of this most recent 5-year last year. The results should be finished in about another month to 2 months, hopefully before Christmas. And then it'll be posted online so you can kind of take a look. They do it across the Commonwealth for every school building, and so you can go in and take a look. And so, as Pat and I were talking, if there's some things in there that they've caught that we haven't, for example, that will pop up, and it may end up becoming a #1 priority depending on whatever happens.
Right.
So we're just putting that qualifier out there that we're presenting this, but knowing full well that MSBA will have something coming forward within the next 2 months.
So one of the things that I noticed isn't in here are cameras in the high school. And we know there are fewer cameras than the SRO and the school administration would like.
right, and we put some in this year
added some
already.
this year.
We've already added some.
Well, we needed to add some because there was hardly anything in there, and we need to make sure we're blanketing it, but.
In the budget last year, for this year, I put some money to have a consultant come in and look at all of the buildings.
The cameras.
All of the cameras in the buildings. And one of the things that I'm looking for from them is what exactly is it that we need in each building? I just don't want to say, the principal says we need a camera here, let's throw one here. I want to make sure that we're up to date on the equipment that we're using, so I would like a consultant to look at that first, and I want to spend the money efficiently.
So didn't we have someone do that? Didn't you have a company?
We did a trial.
Yeah, and how did that go, and what's the recommendation for that?
The trial from...
Stowe was Hale, I think.
Yeah.
That was a couple of years ago?
That was last year.
Was it last year?
That was the end of last year, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Maybe just not remembering. We'll have to go back and take a quick look at that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We did that.
Right, because they were going to come in and they were going to do that, and then if we decided to move forward, they were going to charge us for it unless we decided to move forward, and then it was going to be that they would recoup their costs when they went through the rest of the building.
Wait a minute. No, that was technology. That was technology.
That was right.
Yeah, that's right. That was technology.
So we have a couple of assessments that we need to.
Well, this was the one that we were going to have this year. This was the assessment of the cameras.
Oh, so you haven't done this yet?
No, we haven't done this yet. I'm actually looking for one right now. I'm looking, you know, to see if I can find a couple.
So it's not off our
people.
radar, is the bottom line.
Right, it's just juggling facilities and. So, does anybody have any questions about anything that's on any of these lists?
Yes.
Okay.
So, like smoke detectors in Lancaster, for Mary Rowlandson and Luther, $35,000.
Right.
That seems like really high for replacement, because you're putting the actual unit, I don't think they're not doing new hardwiring, right?
Well-
I mean, they're just replacing the unit,
I believe they have to be hardwired.
but they are hardwired. Usually what you're doing is you're not pulling the wiring out, resetting the wiring, you're just replacing the unit. And
Well-
at $100 a unit, that's 350 units that you could put in those two schools, and 100 is pretty high so
But-
I don't know why that's so high.
What I can say is that we have to pay prevailing wage. We have to bring somebody out with a ladder, an electrician does the work.
How many estimates do you?
I just have the one.
I mean, Steve will come and do it for much less than that, right?
Yeah, 34.9.
There you go.
Well, my question on that, once again, a lot of these things that we're looking at individually, plus the fact that we've either, A, been sold obsolete equipment in the past, as one of the notations here was. It was already obsolete when it was installed. A lot of these things that have some sort of electronic connectivity with a major central kind of system, we really should be making, you don't see that?
No, we're not understanding what you're referencing. with
It's
the obsolescence.
in Stowe, it's the door security system replacement.
Oh, okay. Let us get to that page. Yep.
We may have to do that this year. So that's why there isn't anything listed as a cost for that.
That happened with the cameras too. We put analog cameras in years after they were
Yeah.
digital, and then we went out and sourced an old analog system to work with the cameras, which cost more than replacing everything, so.
We should be looking
I
at
see
some of
fine.
these things. What I'm trying to indicate is that we should be looking at some of these things from a systemic point of view, in that looking at ultimately reaching some sort of electronic school or school HVAC, security, voice systems, speakers, bells, all of these things as a package at some point, or as components of a package that can be ultimately put together to be, maybe I'm not expressing myself
No,
properly.
actually, no, I think I do get what you're saying. And looking at
In
it
other
from a
words, like-
school
like
level.
to now do the electronic
Yeah.
house,
Yeah.
we should be looking far enough ahead to be looking at an electronic school.
Yeah.
Right, like
Building for all of the,
Right.
all of the pieces
Yeah.
that go together. on it.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I don't know that we would have thought to have looked at it through that type of a lens. That's an interesting approach.
Actually, that's why you have an outdated system at center,
Yeah.
because they went with the same system.
Huh, okay. Good to know.
But there are some districts that are starting to bring in smart building systems that, as Steve was saying, control, lighting,
Yeah.
heating, and cooling,
Right.
and everything sort of works together. And it does at a certain point probably make sense to look at all these various individual components that need replacing, and are there ways that we can sort of be more efficient about it?
Yeah. Interesting.
I was referencing, I found at Stowe Center School, at original install, the software was outdated.
Right. That's what we're being told by the vendor who repairs it.
Plus, the original vendor is unable to repair it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, let's not fall into these kinds of traps again. Let's maybe jump ahead to the day after tomorrow rather than looking at tomorrow.
Thank you.
Quick question, are the town administrators informally advised about the consideration for some of these things in your
Well, I'm
meetings?
actually meeting with all of them on Monday morning.
All right, so what's our next step on this? Pat's gonna continue to
A pass
refine.
continue,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
it's a work in progress.
Right, and I can
Yeah,
update.
it's not gonna stop tonight.
No.
No, well, it can't, but, so that's great. So you'll come back to us with a revised document. To Steve's point, that's a whole shift in the culture of how things have been done, but I don't know who, if it's you, if it's, just forgot his name. Rob. But, that's a really.
I'm saying, to look at like the whole system.
Right,
Lighting,
it's clear,
shading.
Steve, it's clear. I think that's the point, is that it's a valid point. And how do we shift the thinking from the siloed approaches to a more comprehensive solution?
Right, and still be within the procurement laws.
Yeah, but I think Steve's point is well taken.
It's the product that you're looking, it's not the procurement laws, it's the
Right.
products that we're sourcing.
Right,
you know.
Consistency.
So what about, like, DESI has a lot of recommendations for, let's say, technology, and where schools should be, a year from now or two. They're sort of thinking about like pipelines and all this other stuff, and they have recommendations. I'm wondering, do they have anything like that
For buildings?
For some of the other things for buildings, or do you have like a co-op or anything like that with the schools that you could actually
Well,
access?
there's a piece of me that's wondering if MSBA doesn't have something.
Sure.
That's what I was
That's a great
I'm
idea.
just thinking, what if we shouldn't give Diane Sullivan a call and talk to her about this and see what other buildings, to your point, what other cohorts are doing.
No.
So, great suggestion, thank you.
So you
Pat,
can bring
thanks,
that
this is a
back.
lot of work, thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat. Okay, we're going to invite Ms. Rich, Athletic Director, back to the table for
And
an
I believe
athletics
this is the
update.
birthday girl.
All right, well, happy birthday, and now give us what you got, sister. It's August, thank you.
Go easy.
Happy birthday, Johnny.
Thank you. So thank you for having me here tonight. I did the fall ethics update that's in your packets. However, we do have some updates since last Friday. So our field hockey team is moving on to their 4th consecutive district final game tomorrow night. Neshoba defeated Groton Dunstable 7-1 in the quarterfinals and then beat Wachusett 4-2 last night in the semis. And now they're going to be playing Algonquin in the district finals tomorrow night at 5:15 at Grafton High School. And luckily for us, we're going to actually have a doubleheader at Grafton High School, because following the field hockey game, our girls soccer team will be playing in the district semifinals versus Algonquin. It's the Neshoba Algonquin night tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And the girls team defeated Grafton last night 1-0 in the quarterfinals to
It was an
advance.
awesome game.
Yeah, great game. I guess
Cold.
right when I walked out, I was closing my computer up, and that's when they scored. Yeah, I was trying to rush over to field hockey in Grafton. Yep, my luck. The football team, they played in their first playoff game last Friday night at home, and they defeated Westboro 27-13, and they're moving on to the district finals, which they'll play Marlboro this Saturday morning at 11 a.m. at Doyle Field. This is actually a rematch of last year's district final game, so hopefully we can come out on top, because last year, unfortunately, we did not. Our cross-country teams will compete in the district championship on Saturday at Gardner's Golf Course. And our cheer team, they competed in the league competition last Sunday. They placed second, which qualified them for the regional tournament, which will be this Sunday at Shepherd Hill. And we're just waiting on the time of that. So, fall teams are doing very well. To have 2 teams playing for a district title this week is unbelievable. And hopefully if soccer can win tomorrow night, they'll move on to the district finals. That'll be played on Saturday night. So I think the fall weather is finally here. As I look for the forecast over the next few days, I think we're going to be bundling up at these games. There's a high of 39 tomorrow, so I know.
Can I ask you a question at that point?
Yes.
A couple school committee members have asked me where they can buy Neshoba gear. What time is the school store open? Do they have access to it?
So if you were to email Stavros Andriopoulos, who's in charge of the school store, he will have a student or himself will open the school store at any time. Usually it's during lunch times, but he does open up after school, before school, to help out. You got it.
All right, good.
Any questions on any of the fall update then? Nope, great. Keep going, Tanya.
All right, so then the next piece is Superintendent Clenchey asked Mr. Cullinan and I to look at user fee data across the Midwatch League, which we talked about last year a little bit as well. So we did that this fall. We talked to the middle school principals. Briefly discussed this with Superintendent Clenchey and Pat Maroney, and we've come up with a user fee proposal that is just a suggestion to you as a school committee that I want to discuss tonight, and then kind of go from there. You think this is a good idea? If you want to go back and have us look at something else, and just have a conversation on what we should do in our next step with user fees. So when we look at the high school user fees, the average fee among our mid-watch schools is $210. So after looking at that and looking at our schools compared to schools that are about the same size as us in our league, we're suggesting to increase our user fee by $25 to $175 for next year. We thought that'd be fair, and giving families enough notice about that would be good so families can prepare for that. And we also want to add a family cap, because a lot of schools do have a family cap, and we're suggesting a family cap of $900 per year, which is approximately 5 fees. We went through and looked at all the different family caps and what the user fees of those schools were, and after doing some math and figuring out the average of fees for a family cap was 4. Right around that 3 to 5 range. So we thought, with having a family cap for the first time, and we do have some families with twins and triplets that are playing sports, so we thought having a family cap would be very important for us. And then also looking at students with free and reduced lunch rates. Right now, we just waive a fee if a student is free or reduced lunch, but as we dug deeper, a lot of schools have a rate for reduced lunch students and then free lunch fees. So we were going to suggest that a student that has a reduced lunch fee is a $75 fee, and then if a student has free lunch, then we'd waive the fee completely.
Oh, that makes me happy.
Yeah, and I think it's just working with all the different, families and, different situations we could come up with. And then one thing we thought of is just not having our high school fees and middle school fees combined. So you have one family cap for the high school, because we're going to suggest that the fees for the middle schools right now stay status quo at $55 per sport with no family cap.
So the cap is only at the high school?
At the high school, yep. And again, this is just our suggestions after talking with,
Well,
our
you're
group.
making a recommendation. This is
Yeah,
a recommendation.
and,
It's
this
okay.
is where
Loud and proud, we're hearing you.
we can go from there. Any questions on any of, yes, Lynn?
So, why are you raising them? Are the fees not covering the sports? Like the fee is for the buses and for the stipend and for the reps, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So are the fees not covering the sports?
No, they are, but I think we felt that coming off of last year, it seemed like our fees were low compared to the other schools in our league, and that we wanted to look at a potential increase.
Again, I want to point out that this is a recommendation. She's putting it out there and saying, this is something that we can consider. If you don't want to do this, that's absolutely fine. And so she's just putting forward the thinking that they had and taking a look at everybody. It's up to you to do whatever you want. If you like all of this, great. If you don't like all of it, that's fine too. If you like pieces of it, that's fine. She said at the very beginning, this is about starting a discussion tonight, and so that's how we're seeing it. We're coming to you with some discussion items. Kathy?
There is a budget line item having to do with athletics, isn't there, in the regular budget? I don't have my budget book.
Yeah.
So what does that cover? Does this money go into that budget line item, or is that a separate budget line
That
item?
probably, Pat, I bring that to you to provide detail on
It
that.
does cover some of the costs, as far as like equipment.
Yeah.
We allocated some of the costs directly to the user fees and made sure that all of the user fees were spent. And then after that, whatever, basically what we could leave in the regular appropriation. So just so you know, the costs go up every year, just like the teacher's contract goes up, that there's a stipend in the contract for athletics, and some of them are based on, I don't know.
The base salary.
Is it the base salary?
Yeah.
Okay. And if those costs are going up, so must the user fees.
over time. And the cost of reconditioning the equipment goes up all the time, so we have to keep up with the times.
So what are we covering out of the budget for the athletic equipment, the reconditioning, the stipends, are the user fees covering the cost to provide the athletics? And so that's one question, because...
Is it cost neutral? No. The regular appropriation is covering some of the athletic costs.
And what happens to what is left over, for lack of a better word? So if you have money left over after...
There's nothing left over.
No, what she's
So,
saying...
but then it goes to the district budget. So I guess the point that I guess I'm trying to make is that if the user fees go up, maybe the budget piece doesn't have to go up.
Exactly.
So that would, in my mind...
And that's what we're trying to control.
Doing that. When was the last time we had an increase in user fees?
Honestly, I think when I was in high school it was 150.
Yikes.
You see,
That was like last year.
you know my principal senior year.
I was doing that, trying to figure it out.
So...
That's the point,
There's a point...
There's been, whatever you want to call it, cost of living increase, there's been no adjustments with the scaling that's taken place with the costs. We've, like so many of the other programs, they've sat stagnant and they haven't kept up with the times, so now it turns out that the budget ends up subsidizing much more than perhaps it was originally intended to do. Right, so we're still at 175, and I really appreciate all the work that went into that. 175, we're still well under the average still at this point in time. So personally, I don't think that's unrealistic, but my question that I have is the family cap. Have we looked into how many families that affects with the cap, and that we don't end up shooting ourselves in the foot by putting the cap in place and losing a ton of revenue? Do you know what I mean on that?
When we saw that the family cap for others were, right on that 3 or 4, that's when we went with 900, which is 5, so we don't, shoot ourselves in the foot because of that.
Okay.
And again, that is something brand new to us. So that was like a lot of looking at these and trying to talk things through about, what would make sense. And maybe we try for a year, maybe that doesn't make sense. But that's something that we don't know until we try it.
And we've had a lot of back and forth discussion on that family cap too, just so that you're aware of that. I mean, even when we got the sheet, Pat and I looked at it and said, is that where we landed? Because we've had so much discussion on this family cap back and forth. Should we, because originally we were going to come forward with the 1,200, and then we went back and forth on that. So there's been a lot of discussion. We landed at the 900, but again, this is about discussion tonight.
Kathy?
So we know that the user fee has stayed the same for about 15 years.
At least 15 years.
At least 15 years. How has that line item grown over that period of time? I don't expect you to have that information off the top of your head, but I mean, that would be information that I would want to look at and talk about before making a decision.
Lynn?
And I'd really like to see what it actually costs to maintain the equipment. And, I mean, I don't mind raising it to 175, but when I first asked you, you said that it's more than enough, and I'd like you to raise it for a reason and not to make revenue. So if maintenance is involved, because we're not seeing the numbers, so if maintenance is involved, if upkeep, stipends, all that stuff is involved, I'd like to see that number.
Okay, so between Pat and Tanya, do you understand what the school committee is asking for you to go back to take a look at?
Right, so is it the breakdown of sport by sport? Because I had that from last year, I can update that again.
Right, so just providing justification on that end.
But also how the budget line item has changed in the last...
That would be Pat.
That's really a Pat thing.
Pat's got that one covered. What I'm going to be, I agree with everything these folks are saying. This side of the table, do you have anything?
I have a view which is different, which is our future as adults is basically going to be staring at computers and not moving around. And I think that schools are an opportunity for everybody to really know what it's like to move around. And I encourage everyone to contemplate no fees at all for athletics, to have a no gateway opportunity for everybody to be fully engaged. So that's where I stand on the topic of fees in general.
I don't necessarily, I mean, that's a little
It's a long-term
to the
thing.
far side. I'm not that, I don't disagree with you, and I think the encouragement piece is huge, but I don't know that we're gonna be able to tackle that one right now.
No, I mean, I philosophically, I agree with you.
Right.
And that gets a little bit at my question, is I know that there are some schools that have a much higher family cap when I'm looking at the top of this list. And that's why I think seeing the actual numbers will be helpful, because 900 to me seems really high. You know, if I was thinking about my own children who are way too little to be playing high school sports yet. And it looks like a lot of other ones are sort of, you know, they do this staggered, there's a couple Clinton and what's that else, like Murdoch and a few others where they sort of stagger it. It's this much for the first sport, this much for the second, this much for the third, or they're capping it at, you know, 500. So I would also be interested in seeing the numbers and kind of getting a sense for, you know, are we, by capping it too high, or potentially discouraging families from, as Mark was saying, participating in sports, which are really important.
A lot of that has to do with the expense of the programs themselves.
Yeah.
And then part of that is, you know, with all due respect, are we efficient in what we're doing with the programs and the costs and the expense of it? So I think that's fair. I think the cap is critical, though.
Yeah.
Because I've got a parent who's reached out every year, and she's got kids, like, I think she's got either twins or triplets.
Triplets. She has four children playing right now.
Right, so like, you know, I mean, you could say, well, that's an extreme situation, but not necessarily. There's children that are in the district, right?
No, a cap is really important.
Yeah. My concern is equity. I have a big problem with the equity in the sports, and we've talked about this before. And this year, I'm not going to be able to get beyond it. So when there's a sport that costs more money, it should not be borne from the district. I don't think. That's my opinion. And so this, you know, I mean, you've got a sport that, you know, $20,000 comes out of the budget every year for that sport. Now, the other question I have is, I don't even know what the football expense is. Like, I've never seen what that is, and I'm sure it's higher too. And I'm not picking on any sport. It's just the visibility into what the actual costs are. But I have a hard time getting behind one sport that is extraordinarily subsidized through the budget. I just don't think that's fair. And if that can't be covered by the user fees, then maybe we just don't have it. So, Neil?
So, I philosophically
agree with you, but I'm going to disagree with you.
However, we're going down the wormhole in that respect, because if you want to compare football, for instance, you get the reconditioning equipment, but that is a major revenue generator. Whereas you've got golf, really, I don't know who pays to go and watch spectator sport golf, right? I mean, at that point.
Right.
So that has a drag, and I think so if that's the approach you're going to use, I think there also needs to be, we don't like the word in this district, but an offset that's put in place for the particular sport based on revenue that's generated for it too. I think if we're talking about equity and fairness.
That I'm good with. I'm okay with that. You know, come up with the solution, come up with the recommendation. And the football, my comment about football was, I just don't know what the cost of, like, I understand what the cost of the other sports are. I don't know what the cost of football is, so I don't know. And I have a kid that plays, so I'm not picking on any one sport. My concern is with some, you know, we've got a family cap, exclude swimming, hockey, and skiing. Because swimming, hockey, and skiing have additional fees, and parents pay the full boat on swimming, and I'm assuming parents pay the full boat on skiing, but parents do not pay the full boat on hockey.
So for skiing, the parents are paying for the ski pass. The school is still covering the buses, the race lanes, and the actual practice lanes at the mount. So the parents are paying for their season pass so their child can, go every day with the team, and then they can go on, weekends and.
So so this is good.
Yep.
So what's left over that's impacting the budget?
What we pay for skiing?
Yeah.
So the practice lanes?
No, I mean the dollar amount.
Don't have off the top of my head.
So, yeah, so you don't, I don't want you to feel you have to justify something.
Yep.
I'm just raising the equity question because we know that ice time is extraordinarily expensive. And, I have kids that swim, and I know pool time is very expensive. And so, from the time my kids were in 2nd and 3rd grade, I had to pay for pool time. That's just how it is. So I get to high school, I shouldn't assume that I'm not going to have to continue to pay additional for an expensive sport. I don't think it's fair to the rest of the kids who do sports, the budget, the whatever, that we would take more money out to offset the cost of the swim lanes than the swim time or the pool time. I feel the same way, and I feel very strongly about it with hockey, and I'm not trying to, incite issues here, but it's, $20-something thousand a year. And it's how many Neshoba students? Just Neshoba, not the other kids that make up the team. How many Neshoba students in hockey?
38 last year.
Okay, for 38 kids, the budget's subsidizing $20,000.
But it wasn't. So the budget looks different this year. So for swimming and hockey, parents cover the cost of practice ice and practice swim lanes. The district is covering the cost of officials, the transportation, and game ice and swim meets. So the district covers the cost of those. So the parents are only doing pool time for practices and ice time for practices.
It's postseason play that gets expensive beyond that, right?
And that's one of those, and as we said, we don't know if that, we win 2 hockey championships, 3 years ago, and then last year we don't make the playoffs. So you can't really tell when you're going to make postseason.
Right.
I just think there needs to be equity.
But the other thing too, golf team, do the kids, do they have to buy their own golf clubs?
Yes.
Or do we provide clubs?
Yep.
So that's a set that they have to pay for. So what I'm saying is there are hidden fees that it's not just, we have hockey, swim, and ski teams that are listed there, but you need your golf clubs.
Yep.
That's not cheap. Ski teams, in addition to that, you need your skis.
Right, you need to have your
Cross country needs to rent or purchase skis.
Well,
My daughter
hockey
did that
too.
last year. That's not cheap. And then they pay for, they also pay additional practice for going over to Weston or something like that for cross country. There's some.
They pay for their season pass.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's a season pass to pay. So a lot of these are actually, it's not just 3, is where I'm going with the extra
Right, every
fees
sport you
and
play,
all
there's
the
something
costs.
that the family has to incur. Yep.
Right, so I'm saying there may be more equity than perhaps is initially realized in that.
think so.
Well, swimming, I'm not picking on swimming, but you got a bathing suit.
Okay, well,
You guys said-
I will educate you later about that sport. But it's
Yeah.
more than just swimming in your underwear, but we'll get there. All right, so what do you want to do? Because it's not.
And I'm just going to toss this out there, because I'm not sure, Chairman Roscoe, this is where you're heading. Like, are you thinking of different fees for different sports? Is that what the line of thinking you're?
I don't know if that's the answer. I just don't know that there's equity in this. I just don't know. And I'm not picking on it. Because you know what? Hallelujah, we have a cap recommendation. Hallelujah, you're looking at the numbers and trying to figure out, are we subsidizing this? Should we be subsidizing this? To what extent, if yes?
So we're even having this type of conversation. The rich
It's
conversation.
huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. So don't take my questions negatively. That's not the intent.
But I want to make sure that they're going back to find exactly what you want them to find, whatever that is from this committee.
Well, I need to know where you guys want to go next. Here comes Mark. Find out a way to pay for it all. I'd be there. I don't think it's going to work, but.
I understand it's not, it's quite a philosophical difference. I think we have never really had this conversation. We don't have a culture of having this, so I think just even getting the information is a start. And I think that's a very good start without necessarily being driven into a decision.
Oh, no, we're not making a decision tonight.
No, we should be very happy just to go to the next phase of having some information and seeing if that gives people a grip on how to think about the whole.
I think what would be helpful from is to talk to community members and see what their thoughts are on this too. I mean, we need the data, right? We want, but the data's just one piece of it, right? We need to talk to. I know a couple parents I'm going to call who ask about this all the time, and just pulse the people in your area. And if you don't know parents of kids in the schools, call us and we'll give you a couple of names, Kathy and then Steve.
I know that last year Tanya put together the cost of each sport.
Yeah, oh, that was good.
So, but I'd like to, not right now, but pursue this idea of looking at what the actual cost of the sport is, and maybe looking at how that impacts the user fee, to at least have that discussion. But I also am very interested in that budget line item about athletics and how it has changed over the years, and what has come out of that account to pay for what. Because, you know, we want it to be fair, we want it to be accessible, but especially at the high school level.
Right.
These are tryouts. There are kids that make it and kids who do not. And, you know, I don't know that we've ever had a discussion about intramurals or things that are no cut, just to get a sense of participation and looking at what the demographics of the participation are. But I think there's going to be a larger discussion, and maybe we parse it out how it's going to look. But I think that to go back to the information, maybe it's updated, that Tanya presented last year about what each sport actually costs, what the breakdown is, and then what we've been spending out of that athletic account.
Well, and for intramurals, is that included, the 100?
That's part of the regular appropriation, intramurals.
So kids who do intramurals, do they pay a fee to do intramurals? No.
Is there intramurals?
Some school systems, they do.
Yes,
because it's a school activity.
Seasons.
Why, so why wouldn't they pay a fee for intramurals? I don't.
We never have. We run at each of the middle schools and the high school, we run 8 intramural programs a year.
And they're
it's through the district.
extracurricular after school.
Yep.
And there's a stipend that accompanies that.
And that's the stipends coming from the district budget. Yep.
That's something else to look at. I mean, and also to look at, when we have a list of the other schools, what do they charge, if anything, for the intramural, their intramural program?
They don't charge for intramurals, the middle
No
schools.
high school does.
Oh, for the other high schools?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what other high schools.
Well, see, I mean, that would be helpful to look at what they charge.
All right, well, Steve.
Okay. I think as a base, to at least look at the cost side of it rather than the philosophical side of it, we need to see how much does each sport cost per participant? And then we can balance that against what each participant is paying as the fee. You know, so it's basically what does each sport cost per participant less what the user fee is taking out of that. Let's say it costs $1,000 for a football player, less $150. So the net cost to the system per participant is $850. I'm just throwing numbers out. But I think that's a place to start. And that puts everything on an apples-to-apples basis.
Okay, so I think Neil.
Tanya's done a lot of that work.
Right.
And so I get what you're saying, Steve. So and you may have even done it, did you put how many people are involved in each particular program?
I printed out my notes from last year.
We can
Just
figure that out, which
revise
is great.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I think, one of the things is if you could have like a little notations, add another column to that, and put in notations in there of what the all-in is. In other words, so golf, like, okay, you get your fees, but student pays for the clubs, and just like little notations for that. And I think that starts helping people understand what the all-in, because there's an all-in cost, and then there's what the fees are and And those all-in costs are going to vary.
Okay,
And
so.
it just helps us, I think, get a firm grip.
Thanks, I'm sorry. We really need to move on, but Susan,
I just have a really quick question.
no, I want you to speak. Yeah, please.
Are there any, do you know of any districts that specify what types of expenses they agree to pay using the user fee? Like, in other words, could we specify we're only going to pay for busing, officials, uniforms, equipment, like, and then just sort of like come up with one cost pool? Am I making sense? And then, so we take in the money, we agree, these are the expenses, whether we take in enough to make it revenue neutral or not. And then the parents know when they sign up for the sport that any additional cost that's incurred by the district, they're responsible for.
That's putting a cost on additional, for
Yeah.
each individual
Yeah,
program.
above and beyond officials and transportation and, do you know of any districts that do that?
I don't know.
Is it really quick? Because I want to wrap this up.
But what would that do about, like, youth football? What would that do about all the money that they bring in? So that would have to be included also.
Yeah.
That'd be an offset.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so we're asking for a lot here, and we've got people that have day jobs. So let's define priorities on what did we hear around the table? You took better notes
Yeah.
than I did, and
So-
then prioritize.
So can I take the lead on this?
Yeah,
for a second?
yeah.
So first of all, the intramurals, I personally don't know of any school districts that charge anything for intramurals, but we can send it out on a listserv and we'll just take a look and
And
see.
I will be meeting tomorrow morning that I can ask them.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the intramurals, that's really where, one of the few places where, I have to say, like, this goes back to Mark's thinking that it's a place that kids can play sports that they don't have to pay. So I don't know that I personally, philosophically, would be in agreement with charging, but we'll take a look. So you can just shoot a question out on your listserv. Second thing is the cost per sports the work that you did last year, just update that quickly for us. I don't think that should be a whole lot of work for you, because I know that your template is already there, so it's just kind of a case of updating that. Pat, you're also going to take a look at the line item as per Kathy's questions. So I think that those for me were the big takeaways from tonight. I also want to jump on what Mark said. I really appreciate the rich discussion around the table tonight. I think it was very, very helpful, and I really appreciate the engagement, the level of engagement on this discussion. So thanks to all of our school committee members. Thank you for all your work, Tanya.
Tanya, can't thank you enough for this work. I mean, it's visibility in an area we knew nothing about. So thank you so much, and just know that it's truly appreciated. All right,
Thank you.
so we're gonna put you folks. We're not gonna take a vote. We're gonna put you back on an upcoming agenda.
Yeah.
And Neil, Lynn, last comments before we move on.
You got me, I was asking when she was coming back. But you're gonna.
Yep, we're gonna bring her back. We're gonna bring her back.
When she's ready, once she's...
Don't let me forget.
And it has to, how long before we have to replace the turf field?
So it's anywhere from 10 to 15 years. So we're in year 5.
Okay.
What is that? What was
That's
the
important
question?
to know. When do we have to replace the turf field? We've got 5 to 10 years from now, so.
Okay.
And actually, Rob and I, before I knew Rob was the interim, we've actually been working on coming up with a 1, 5, and 10-year plan. That includes the turf, the track, and the tennis courts. Those are things that you have to maintain to get your full life out of them. So we're in the process of trying to work.
They're in the process of doing
that right now.
Yeah, we're trying to come up with that
Okay.
plan so we know, and we're working with vendors trying to get quotes and whatnot, so we have an idea what that's going to look like
Okay.
for
All
the
right.
budget cycle.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
You got it.
All right, ladies, I am so sorry. We are so behind, and please come join us and give us an update on MCAS, because we really do need to hear what you have to say.
Talk to you later.
Hey, well, good evening.
Good.
Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here.
Thanks for the invitation 20 years later.
Well, I think we just want to remind everybody, for anybody who's watching tonight, so this is Patty O'Connor, who is our director of our ELA and the humanities component of our world, and Martina Kenyon, who is the director of our STEM. side of our academic world. So they've pulled together a number of different iterations, and you're going to quickly go through those, the final iteration tonight. And I have one or two things when you're done that I want to read off of the MESC bulletin that some of our school committee members may have taken a look at or not, but I think these are important to bring forward tonight. So Martina, Patty, we turn it to you. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so while we were looking at the data, we generated some guiding questions to help us sort through and look at the information. The guiding questions that we created are basically around the district. Oh, you want to move the screen? Sorry. It's right there. I'll let you. Okay.
The button for the side, yeah, that one.
Got it? Okay, so the guiding questions are helping us focus our work and the way we're looking at the data. This year, we had a brand new assessment in grades 3 through 8. It's called the Next Generation Assessment. And because it's a brand new assessment, we're not able to compare the data from the previous year. So as a result, the bulk of our information is looking at our district in relation to the state's performance. So we chose this particular slide because you may remember last year we were considered a level 2 district. And this year, the accountability formula has changed. So we're no longer, we didn't receive a level because the criteria to determine a level for this year is based on participation because of the new assessment. So everything has changed this year. So I'm just pointing out that as a district, we're not assigned a level this year.
Is that unique to us, or is that every district in the state?
No, I actually just wanted to add on, so no, there was no assignment of level 1 this year, and there was no assignment of level 2 for districts on the whole. So districts either received no level if they met the criteria for participation, or if they didn't, they received a level 3 status, and in some cases 4 or 5, depending on other.
So that we don't have a level is not a bad thing.
Actually, a good thing.
It's a good thing. Okay.
So is that
Go ahead. Sorry, just want to clarify.
We're going to start doing levels next year?
We are not 100% sure. We haven't heard with certainty.
I don't know.
But we know that this is a baseline year.
And it's totally based on participation alone?
Only this year because it's a baseline year for a new assessment. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh.
Thank you.
Want me to do it?
So if you printed any kind of the presentation before today, this slide wasn't in there because as we were kind of going through what we wanted to say, we felt like we needed to add a little more context. So if anybody wants a hard copy, I do have some to pass around. So just before we actually go into our data at Neshoba, we wanted to give you a little background and a few reminders as far as some of the changes that took place on the Next Generation MCAS assessment that students in grades 3 through 8 took in 2017. So the first big change was that the types of questions that students worked through for both ELA and math were very different. There were new types of questions, new styles, and they were more rigorous, more higher order thinking oriented. On top of that, in grades 4 and 8, students took this Next Generation MCAS assessment on the computer in 2017. Again, because this is a new assessment and a baseline year, we're now actually seeing the achievement categories reported as listed there: exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, partially meeting expectations, and not meeting expectations. Those categories actually take the place of advanced, proficient, needs improvement, and warning, which have been our legacy indicators in the past. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this over the next 2 slides, but there's a reason that they're actually not comparable. We cannot compare the legacy levels to the new ones, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. They're very different.
Can I just go back to, and I'm not going to do a lot of interruptions here, but just for example, I think sometimes when we think about kids using computers, we think, oh, well, they're used to using them more frequently in the classroom or at home or whatever. But I'm thinking the ELA, for example. The ELA, there are ways that those kids have to go in and cut and paste and highlight things and everything. And I keep in mind again that our district did not pilot this stuff. And so this was really brand new to our kids this year. And especially with the ELA more than the math. The math is a little bit more straightforward. The ELA, just navigating that system, is a craft in and of itself.
It's another layer. So again, the next two slides really just talk a little bit more about why the levels aren't comparable, because we felt that that was important context as to why we're not talking about comparing to previous years and why we're really focused on our comparison to the state. Another change in order, if you printed before today, this is actually the next slide, so if anyone has this in front of them. So, as Patty mentioned, we're in a baseline year with a new assessment, and so as part of that process, teams of teachers gathered together to actually determine what the expectations were for students in each of the achievement categories. And one of the outcomes of that conversation was that the expectation on the 2017 MCAS was that students about 50% of the students would fall into the exceeding or meeting categories, which are the green and yellow on the screen there. And conversely, on the other side of that, 50% of students statewide for the 2017 MCAS would fall into the partially meeting and not meeting categories.
That's the state's expectation?
Yes, and actually I looked at the real data, the actual like after the fact data, and it's very close to that.
50 up,
Yep.
50 down, 10% on each level.
And so part of the reason for that was that the questions are a lot more rigorous, and so they were kind of accounting for the fact that we have some work to do as a state to really meet those expectations. So I'm not saying here that that's going to continue, but that was the conversation.
So this is a perfect segue for me to just read this one piece. So again, this is the MASC bulletin that you probably all got. I just want to read this one little piece. It says the new MCAS is a more difficult test, and it is expected that the test results will reflect that. The state projects that student results will be more in line with the most recent results of the National Assessment for Educational Progress, which is the NAEP. There will be fewer students achieving in higher categories, not because student learning has been lost, but because the state is applying a higher standard.
And another interesting outcome of that is that the teams worked vertically across grade levels to ensure that there was consistency in terms of the expectations at each of the grade levels. In comparison, and this is a huge reason why we can't compare to the previous achievement levels, in past years, this very busy graphic shows the expectation breakdown for each of the grade levels in each of the content areas. And as you might be able to see, in some grade levels, 50% of students could have been in advanced and proficient, and in some grade levels, 80 or above % of students could have been in the advanced proficient category. And so that's a part of the reason why we can't really compare. It's truly apples to oranges or beyond.
Or as a reporter said to me, apples to broccoli this year. It's apples to broccoli, yeah.
So this has been an opportunity for us to look at our data a little bit differently. We did not compare, because we couldn't, to previous years for grades 3 through 8. And so we've really focused our analysis on looking at how we did in comparison to the state and to students statewide and to peer groups statewide.
Peer groups, for growth.
Okay, so now we're going to look specifically at Neshoba's data. And the next slide is the grades 3 through 8, English Language Arts. And as you can see, on the right-hand side is the state graph, which in an earlier slide, Martina explained about the expectations that 50% would be in the upper categories, and this is a great representation of it. However, our district is doing very well, and you can see that we are well above the state in terms of performance in grades 3 through 8.
But this is a baseline, right?
Yes.
So if we're performing higher, is it going to be harder for us to prove achievement?
Growth? It's a great question.
And we're almost there in terms of, Martina's going to be focusing on growth. That's a very
We're going to look at that in a minute.
But I mean, just to acknowledge your question, when we first saw our scores, we had mixed feelings.
Mixed feelings for that very reason.
Because we'll talk about it over and over, our students and educators have worked, as they always do, so hard to just help our students really achieve at their potential or even beyond that. And so that's shown in the data here, but certainly there was the other side to that, which is we don't
That's
know.
our baseline.
We don't know. Yeah, and we don't know because all of it is changing. We don't know even what baseline means because it may be very different from previous years. So for now, we're not trying to speculate because we simply don't know what that's going to look like, not even just from a performance standpoint. So this, as a reminder, is ELA, and it looks like the exact same graphic for math.
Right, very similar with math as well.
And the story is also the same for science, technology, and engineering. You'll notice, however, that those graphics are actually reported using the old achievement levels, the legacy achievement levels. The reason for that is that the transition timeline for STE is a little bit lagging to math and ELA. So the students will take the next generation STE assessments for grades 3 through 8 in 2019, and then that will be followed by the high school either 1 or 2 years after that.
So this isn't a baseline?
So this is still a baseline in terms of the leveling of school districts, but it's not a baseline. If we had annual data, we could look back, and I actually have, and it looks comparable to previous years. So another way that we can look at our data, just in terms of, again, how are we doing as a district, is to really talk about the two major components of performance on the MCAS. So we've talked so far a lot about the achievement performance, which in this graphic is the vertical axis there, how many students in our district are meeting or exceeding expectations. However, the other very important side to that is how are our students growing in comparison to their own performance in previous years. And so hopefully you can begin to imagine that the ideal case is to be in the top right section of this graphic for high growth, high achievement. And so the next couple graphics kind of show you where we stand from that perspective as well. So this data is the ELA growth data.
So if you can imagine, like somebody said, well, what's the X in the middle? If you can imagine that this, you should really be almost drawing a line right here. And I'd like to point out how many districts are here and even down here. So to be here is like incredibly good because a lot of districts are down here. And by the way, you can go online, if you go onto the Mass DESE website, you can bring up all these scatter graphs.
These are all public.
They're all there.
So that's the ELA achievement versus growth graphic for grades 3 through 8. This is the math achievement versus growth graphic for grades 3 through 8. This is the ELA achievement versus growth graphic for grade 10.
Why is the X so high?
So that's an indication of the average state achievement versus growth, or average achievement versus median growth. And the math achievement versus growth.
Wow.
So, you know, our summary of our overall data is that we've had another very strong MCAS performance year for our aggregate of students overall. And again, we really feel that that's a testament to many different factors, most acknowledging the work that our students and educators have done to just continue to push this forward amongst many other contributors.
Okay. With this slide, we're looking at subgroup data. In particular, we're looking at the high needs subgroup. And the high needs subgroup is made up of many subgroups, including our English learners, students with disabilities, and our low-income students. And so they become clustered, and then they're the high needs group. So as you can see, we are above the state with our high needs group. However, we're not significantly high. It's not the kind of good news story that we have with the aggregate. So the subgroup work continues to be an area of focus for us, an area that is a priority, and we continue to look at our programs that are servicing our kids. These are the dates for next spring. And in particular, what I want to point out is this past spring, we had computer-based testing in 2 grades, and now we're adding 2 more grades. So this spring, our 4th, 5th, and 7th grade students will all experience the computer-based testing. And then the following year, it will be 3 through 10.
So as already mentioned, we're very proud of our MCAS data once again this year, and we're looking forward to building upon that progress in the coming years. So as far as next steps, the first thing we do with this data is really meet with the principals individually to look at the data in the context of their school, and in the context of the students, and in the various contexts that exist. We also last week met with the principals as a group, which was actually the first time that we've done that, and the purpose for that was really to talk about how we can build off of one another's strengths, because we have so many, and in some of our analysis identified that there were different areas of strength, so how can we kind of learn from each other in terms of that, and the feedback that we heard from that conversation from principals was that felt very productive for them as well. On the same line of thinking, we are looking at patterns with instructional practices within our district in terms of helping more students grow academically, and then also anticipate looking outside of our district, just where perhaps we have contacts that can help us there. And as one example, we're seeing some early indications that the very, very strong efforts in terms of co-teaching in middle school, in Luther Burbank Middle School, in the math classrooms, we were actually kind of surprised to see that shown already in this first year of data, because we just started that. So we don't know, we can't say that that's a trend, but certainly it was
it's
very
promising.
reassuring. Yes.
Okay. And then last spring, we met with groups of elementary staff and middle school staff, and we looked at how we service our at-risk or students that need enrichment, and that process is called the STAT process, or the Student Assistance Team. So that form has been fully updated, and this was one of the district goals that we had identified for our DIP. And so now we're using the same form district-wide K through 8. So that's a success that we're hoping will help us identify students in a more consistent way. And then finally, we're continuing to work with students and teachers to help get them up to speed with the computer-based testing. So those are some of the next steps that we're taking away from the...
So I remember last year, Superintendent Clenchey was new, and she said, you haven't done anything on computer-based testing, and I'm just going to let you know that I want you to be prepared that because you haven't done it, it's going to affect your scores. And then the result, I don't know what you people did, but that's pretty impressive.
It's amazing. I'm going to also agree with both Martina and Patty. I think that our teachers and our kids deserve so much credit. You know, you use the term educator, because it was, you know, those people that were in leadership, you know, department chairs, you name it, anybody who was involved in getting us to here is amazing. And I think, you know, I said this, I think to, you know, to Neil this morning, we were talking just briefly about it, and I do think that what we did, we need to replicate again this year for the work in terms of getting those kids and those staff ready for the CBA. That's huge. It is not all about a test, so please be clear, I totally get that, but nor do I ever want our kids to be disadvantaged. And I think that the work that was done last year is amazing. I mean, we had a great meeting again today with the principals, and Suchi and Cindy were involved in that, making sure that all our ducks are aligned for this upcoming. So I think we're in a good place, really good place moving forward.
All right, we're going to take a couple of quick
you.
comments, questions from you folks, and then if there's more, we'll funnel them through.
Can funnel them through you, and then we can put it out there.
All right, guys, Neil.
I wrap my mind around high achievement, high growth. I get the high achievement, but how do we have high growth if we've only got one round of testing?
Question. So it comes back to how the growth is actually calculated. So I have a handout that attempts to illustrate that. This is from the DESE. I'll keep one, and I may not have enough copies for everyone, so sorry. So the way student growth is calculated is that students are compared by their assessment achievement history. So they're grouped together according to their history with a group of academic peers.
Like
And then
peers.
all the assessment data for the current year for all those students is sort of organized and assigned percentiles, and that's how the growth is implied.
Thank
So
you.
it's progress, but really looking at the data.
The only other little quick thing was we're going with third graders this year.
We're,
For the
no,
MCAS?
fourth, fifth.
The addition is 5 and 7
Okay,
this
so
year.
third, is third next year?
The
or
following year, FY19.
What sort of concerns do you have about the third graders having proper keyboarding skills?
We had this discussion this morning, actually, in the principals meeting, because we explained the same thing. So we actually are looking at a plan to get some of the Chromebooks in the hands of our second graders, actually, and that very discussion happened this morning. So it's a great question. I wouldn't say that we have a finalized plan, but we're certainly thinking about it.
Cool, thank you.
Susan?
I know that we can get this data off of DESI's website, but I wondered if you could just speak to whether or not there was a difference between the grade levels that took a paper pencil test and the grade levels that took the computer-based. Did you notice?
Yeah, we actually looked for that, and there was nothing that we could see in particular for our district that indicated a difference. So there may have been one in the raw scores, but the scaled scores accounted for it, and thus it would have been the same for everybody in the state. So there was nothing that we could see that spoke to any specific issue in our district.
So the computer-based was sort of a non-issue.
And I think it speaks to the preparation.
Yeah.
And
I think so
a
too.
lot of effort went into that. So.
Okay, anything else, last minute, quick, Lynn?
So would parents actually see something like this?
So they don't get it in their mailing, but all the things that we've printed are from on the DESI website.
Right.
There's actually the presentation contains a link to parent resources, and a lot of the slides that we have from the DESE come from that parent resources page. So it's part of a larger presentation that families have access to if they want.
No, I'm just wondering, like when I get my MCAS for my child.
That's not going to be in.
That's not going to be there, no.
Well, because there's only 1 year. But will I get one next year? Showing growth?
Well, students are assigned a median student growth percentile even this year. They do have that reported. They just don't get this explanation of how that comes to play in a year where the levels are not comparable.
Okay.
Right. Ladies, thank you so much. I
Thank you.
really appreciate your detailed look in this. Thank you.
All right, in old business, we're gonna, if it's okay with everyone, we're gonna bump the bylaws discussion to the next meeting. I think there's a little bit more we need to do with that. School committee manual, Kathy.
Okay, so the Personnel Subcommittee has been working on the school committee manual since the spring, and this was sent out to you was the 4th draft, and folks were asked to provide input for us in the spring. And what the Personnel Subcommittee did was look at the input, think about and discuss what really the purpose of the manual is. And there's so much, as we all know, having been on the school committee, that we need to know and understand. But this is really, the intention of the manual is a primer for those people who are currently on the committee. But if someone is interested in being on the committee, like I just thought it'd be cool to be on the school committee, not knowing all the stuff I had to know, but this would be helpful. And so our goal was to sort of put as much information as possible in one place. And then the other thing was not to go into extensive detail about certain things, but provide links to the additional information. So on page 5, where it talks about the new school committee member orientation, there is a link of pertinent materials that people would benefit by. There are references to other things that are on the website. So instead of including all of these things, there are references and in some cases links to them. A lot of information is provided to us as we go about the work that we do that comes through the various committees, like policy. At the end of the policy revision process, we will actually be connected, have our policies up on the MASC website along with those of the other school districts that subscribe. So that'll make accessing that information a lot easier for us. And then at the very end, in the appendix, there are some things that we felt would be useful. Our protocols are an important piece of this. There are some things, we looked at school committee manuals from several other districts, and then those of you who were here, I can't remember if it was last year or the previous year, we had Dorothy Presser and Glenn Kuchar come and talk to us about emerging issues that involve school committees. So things such as behavior as a public meeting, in public meetings, communication. There's a section on social media that we took from this work that Dorothy and Glenn had done through MASC. Information about the subcommittees. Again, when I joined the school committee and asked about subcommittees, there was no information. What do they do? What are your responsibilities? So this is what we have put together. We deliberately kept it concise, I think, in the ones that we looked at. The shortest one was 13 pages, and there was one that was about 40 pages that we thought was way too long. At the end, we have our organizational chart, and in the appendix, bylaws, the meeting calendar, the school calendar. And so after 6 months of development, this is
and many reviews.
Many reviews and edits. This is what we are bringing forward to the committee.
Okay, so the document, again, just to reiterate what Kathy said, is it's a primer. It's not intended to replace any of the MASC modules. It's not intended to replace the introductory program that we all have to take. And it's not intended to replace actual participation on school committee. So with that, assuming everyone's had a chance to weigh in, does anyone want to make a motion to accept the document? Are there concerns that you may have? Because after the fourth reading, I would hope that they have been
fourth draft. This
resolved.
is really
Fourth draft.
Yes. So this is really the first time they've seen it.
I thought, you had sent it out before.
Oh, that's right, I did.
Yes, you
in the spring.
You've sent it out.
Okay.
Did everyone read it? Okay. Any issues? Someone want to make a motion? Would someone like to move to adopt the school committee, the Neshoba Regional School Committee manual for use by school committee members?
So moved.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments? All those in favor, let's get it done. Thank you, it's unanimous, it passes.
That's wonderful.
Kathy, thank you for championing
That
that. That's a big
And the other
Good
point I
job.
want to make is one of the PSC's annual goals will be to revise it. So this is our first year with it, and we'll take input, anything that we want to add, any links. So we'll be coming back every year for this. So I can put that it was adopted on 11/8.
This is a set of policies.
All right, so we're going to move on to the MOU, and Don Lowe, Town Administrator from Bolton, is here. Are you okay with coming to the table? I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Clench, and he's like, what am I doing?
Okay, so I'm going to kind of tee it up, and then Don, maybe if you can, if you'd like to extrapolate a bit. So you'll recall that you basically approved an MOU to go forward to the town Board of Selectmen. The town Board of Selectmen had a look at it, kind of did some additional suggestions and whatnot. The chief and I have gone back and forth on a number of different things, and I'm going to let you speak to maybe why the changes were there or whatever. We finally landed with the document that you've got in front of you, and really where the final changes are, I'll just review that in a minute. But maybe, Dawn, is there anything that you'd like to bring to the table on the changes, or because it's a little bit different than the MOU that they first saw?
There was some discussion amongst the Board of Selectmen about perhaps there were one or two aspects that either could have been expanded on a little bit, or an area that was unclear. I shouldn't say unclear, but whether or not it was specific to a certain procedure. So I think that's what they were thinking, and they asked the chief to come back and meet with you again to get your thoughts on it, and to see if you were okay with it.
And then we went through a process there where some of the suggestions actually were kind of pulled out and put into guidelines that were generated as well, that the chief now has from the first red line piece. So finally, where we landed is, if you just take a look on, it's under section 5 where it says procedure guidelines. If I can just draw your attention, and we're actually going to suggest a change or two tonight as well, just minor change to it. It says necessary follow-up, and you can see the yellow, is it highlighted there for you with the yellow? Great. That's when the chief and I took a look at this. My feeling was we already do this anyway. So for me, it wasn't a big ask or a big add. It really wasn't an add at all. It was just articulating what we're already doing. And so what it says, and then I'm going to tell you what we'd like to kind of shift it to. A teacher or other school employee with knowledge of facts pertinent to the reportable act shall first prepare and submit a report on the incident to the appropriate designated school liaison. 2, notify the designated school liaison of the existence of any physical evidence. And then over the page. Take reasonable steps to maintain any pertinent physical evidence in a secure place. And so the chief and I both feel very comfortable with this. The only thing, the suggestion, Dawn, that I'd put forward is rather than a teacher or other school employee, all we need to add there is something like any staff member. So it's
I'm not looking at what you're looking at. What are...
It's like page 5.
Section 5.
Yep.
On page 5.
There, yep.
D, necessary follow-up.
5.
Right there.
Oh, the stuff we reviewed.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So rather than having a teacher or other school employee, just any staff. And then designated school liaison, we don't really have designated school liaison, it's just administration. So those would be the only changes that we would suggest. So some thoughts on this, questions of Dawn or myself?
I'm a little concerned. This necessary follow-up is actually making somebody responsible for, and it almost sounds like the person making the report is to prepare and submit a report, notify the liaison, and then take a reasonable step to maintain any pertinent physical evidence in a secure place. So if I see something, I'm not really sure what I would see, and now I've got to make sure these things happen?
I don't see it through that same lens. I'm going to go back to just the reporting period. I think that there was a sense that perhaps we weren't reporting, but we do. And so if I can just go after that first piece, so to prepare and submit a report on the incident, that's just always happened as it is. So I have no problems with the first one. The second one, notify the designated school liaison of any existence of any physical evidence. That's if there's something there, just let the administrator know that you know that it's there. I'm just snapshotting this. And the last thing is just basically, rather than having custodians clean it up, we want to say we need to protect it until the police are done with whatever their investigation is.
Well, let's start from my lens here. All right, so I've seen something, and so the first thing I got to do is write a report and notify somebody.
First, it's if you've seen one of these key items that are reportable.
Fine, I've seen a key item. So I got to prepare and submit a report to somebody, and I've taken responsibility for this thing by preparing and submitting a report. And I'm going to give it to the appropriate designated liaison. But I'm also going to notify somebody of the existence of this evidence, and now I'm taking responsible to do these reasonable steps. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I just don't see it through that same lens. I hear what you're saying, Lynn. That's not all how I see it, but I'm not disagreeing with the lens that you're looking through on this.
Don't get frustrated, but a teacher or other school employee with knowledge of the facts will be. That's why Lynn is saying that. She's reading it literally, which is what's scary, because frankly, I think this is, okay, I'm just gonna put it out there. This is over-engineering a document that is pretty much widely used for the districts that have SROs in the state of Massachusetts. So here we have a situation where, because there's a little over-engineering, now we're going to start to get into these discussions about what exactly does that mean. And I think, to Lynn's point, is what would make you feel more comfortable that the district will ensure that these things happen.
Rather than the specific individual.
Exactly.
So it's my responsibility to tell you about it, but then I'm hands-off.
Yeah.
No, I'm not making a teacher secure a scene or something.
Exactly.
But again,
somebody knows.
I have things to do. That's not my job.
Yeah.
My job is to teach.
Right. No, I agree.
Right? So if first of all, do you want to we don't have to accept this. We've already approved the document. This went back to the town at the Board of Selectmen, and there were way more recommendations that, in all fairness, were not included in here. And do you even want to accept this? We don't have to accept this.
So what happens if we don't accept it?
We just say we've already signed it.
You could say, we prefer to
So
say
we've
what the one
already
we've already
signed
signed.
it. So why are we looking at this?
Because
Did they sign it too?
No. That's
No,
the
they
point.
didn't sign it.
Who's they?
The Board of Selectmen.
In Bolton. There you go. Talk to Dawn.
How do you feel about it?
Is that the wrong question? Don't put him.
No!
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, she can ask whatever she wants. Go ahead.
The way I look at it is, the Board of Selectmen had some additional thoughts on the matter. As Lorraine said, there were far more edits than this to begin with, and most of them ended up going off into a side letter, or not a side letter, I guess it would be a roles and responsibilities document. And then what you see there is what the remainder was, that the Selectmen said, well, let's kick that back to the school, let's ask the chief of police to meet with the superintendent and get her thoughts on whether or not this would be okay. The chief reported back that the superintendent said it was okay, and then it had needed to come back to the school committee for approval or not, so.
Because from my lens, we already do the report, and Lynn, I hear what you're saying, but we already do the report. I think the notion is make sure that the evidence is protected, but I agree, it's not that person's individual responsibility, it's the responsibility of whoever's been put in charge of this. So from my lens, I was looking at this saying, we already kind of do this, so I didn't see it through the same lens that you're looking at it now. I get it, though.
I 100% agree.
Wait a second. Let's Susan and then Kathy, and then, I'm sorry, Neil, we've got lots of comments.
Could there is there an opportunity to combine the second and third bullet and just say notify the designated school, or you're going to say the administration, right?
Yep.
Notify the administration of the existence of the evidence and have them take responsible steps to maintain it?
Where this is.
But see, now, so you have to prove that you notified them.
No, you just have to notify.
Well, then you have to have a record of the change of evidence.
Yeah.
Right.
Kathy, you want
Well,
to
I'm looking at this, I'm looking at C and I'm looking at D, and to me, C represents what could be analogous to a policy, and then D, to me, is analogous to a procedure. So, there's a reporting procedure, and then if we're talking about the high school, which we are, the principal has to have an expectation for all staff members, and that's where that would be. I'm not sure it belongs here. I think C assumes that. Number 2 says, there's number 1, report the incident, etc. Number 2, maintain pertinent evidence. So I think that it just seems that D is redundant in a way, or overly directive as a part of this, whereas the principal should say, all right, this is the MOU or MUO or whatever it is, and these are my expectations. And just like with reports of bullying or harassment, there's a form you fill out, there's follow-up.
Right.
And
you're
everybody
right.
knows it.
Yeah.
And so I
It's
think it's
unnecessary.
I would think so. I think
Okay.
it's micromanaging
It is.
the administration of the high school.
Okay.
But that's my opinion.
Neil?
So, not to pile on, but I see it as crossing the line. Now, what's happened is the town is now inserting themselves into the district and how the district employees should be acting with something. I get that they want to have the police department respond in a certain way, and that we have an agreement how to work with the police department. Non-emergency situations would fall under our prerogative. We would handle it with the advice of the Bolton Police Department, but not go into some stupid agreement about that. That's number one. Does the union have an opinion upon the teachers reporting? Have they been consulted on this particular thing for the MOU? Because I would think that they would have a very strong opinion on what they have to do as a requirement. And again, this is the town telling the union what they have to do as far as reportability and so forth. And I have a problem with that. So I absolutely, personally myself, will not vote to accept or move this forward.
Okay. Susan?
But the language that we approved in C does say that the teacher or other school employee needs to take those responsible steps to maintain any pertinent physical evidence. We already agreed to that.
But then the responsible steps that the school's already developed.
Right, so it's the policy. So now you refer to the school's policy. This agreement is dictating policy to the teachers, to the district, and to the district employees.
So it's the reasonable steps that you're worried.
It takes it one step too far, where now it's not an agreement. You're saying, you're specifically saying what's going on. That the agreement, the part that the selectmen are, and rightly so, are controlling are the police and how they're going to respond within the high school. But this takes it another step and brings the high school under, well, again, I'm just repeating myself. It's telling the employees what they have to do.
So would it be fair and reasonable then to say, because I'm hearing that you're not supporting this, and so what I'm hearing you say is, the message we're going to send back to the town is no, we're going to stick with the MOU that we first sent out in June with no additional step, nothing else.
Because C is included in that, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We all reviewed it, the attorneys reviewed it, we're all good, and my opinion is, we approved, the point was to have a memorandum of understanding for this function. It was raised by the town, absolutely, we discussed it, we agreed to it, the work has been done, there's no more over-engineering of the materials.
And
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Could it satisfy everybody to simply say for Part D that the superintendent or designee shall cause 1, 2, and 3 to happen?
But I think the issue was...
That way it's really in the
no.
administration's hands by agreement.
Go ahead, Neil.
No, I would disagree. I'm not an attorney, but I love to play one, right? So what we're dealing with here is, again, it's a liability issue on top of that too, because what we're doing is committing the district to certain protocol that has nothing to do with the police. It has to do with non-emergency. We're committing to our protocol to the town, right? And if we don't follow that protocol, we're now liable, okay, for any kind of lawsuit that comes our way. This is what our policies are for. This is what the district has their own stuff for. This, again, crosses the line on multiple avenues, in my opinion.
Okay, so based on this, are there any other comments? I saw Elise raise her hand and then she hit her hand.
No, I was.
Oh, you were playing with your hair?
My hair.
Oh, sorry, she was playing with her hair.
What are all these other ones?
I don't have any
Why are
additional.
those in there now?
That was, I don't
That
know.
was just language cleanup is all it was.
But there isn't...
But there's nothing, as far as I'm concerned right now, the message you're sending is we're leaving it just as it is. Like, that's what you're saying. So as far as I'm concerned, I think, Don, that's the message that we're sending back to the Board of Selectmen.
Oh, what about the other yellow pieces?
That's what it just said, Neshoba Regional School District, and I think there's nothing wrong with Neshoba Regional School District. So if you go back up, we also agree keep all information disclosed between the parties. I don't even know that you need that, because then you quote the law that regulates it, but, did our attorneys look at this? Did Carrie look at this?
No, not the last one, no.
Well,
Wait, no, I believe she did. I believe she did. I'll have to go back and check my emails to see.
Well, you know what? I need to know that she did look at it. I wouldn't even take any of the, under the reportable incidents. Again, designated liaisons from the Neshoba Regional School District and Bolton Police Department. That's fine. That's just identifying us. But I'm not comfortable with that whole section down there. I can't do it.
And I'll look to see if I've got email back from Carrie.
Again, I mean, even between parties, so if we have a non-emergency event that doesn't involve necessarily the police. The other thing is, this is talking about securing evidence and so forth. Now, I know the chief probably took a look at this, but why would we be touching evidence? We'd want to secure the ground or the area that was affected, not, right?
I don't think the chief meant in the sense of taking the evidence somewhere, it's just making sure it's not touched until a police officer gets on the scene.
Totally with you, but the way if I read it literal, again, it's secure it and put it in a
It
secure
gets back to
area.
Lynn's point.
Yeah.
And
If you read it
again,
literally.
that's liability on us. And
So does anybody want to make a motion to adopt this?
I make a motion not to adopt that, and to stick with the first MOU that was put forth last spring.
Well, so we don't
don't
have
need to do
to
that.
take anything,
Yeah.
we're good with where we are. Okay,
That's the
thank you.
message.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate you coming. Okay, subcommittee reports, budget and warrant. Budget and warrant. Neil?
Oh, yeah, that's me. I'm still not connecting with the FinCom budget and warrant thing. Yeah, so we met today, we voted two things. We voted to pass on reports to the school committee, which will be coming forward. It's the recommended reports based on the combination of the forensic audit, MASBO, and really the corrective action plan. So it's us trying to put some end caps on that corrective action plan from last year. So those reports are going to come forward. They had started in the springtime when we met for our session, and we kind of just fleshed them out a little bit over a couple meetings, and so you'll be seeing them next time. And then we also voted to move forward a bunch of policies, I think 16 to 18 policies off the top of my head that, again, fit within the corrective action plan, and what they're doing is giving structure to certain things. And we're going to have a meeting on November 20th with policy, FinCom and policy, and we need to figure out whether it's actually going to have to be a school committee meeting, because if we have a quorum, I think we have to list it as a school committee meeting. Is that
No,
correct?
you don't have to list it as a school committee meeting.
So we can still,
You just have to post it.
There's 5 of us?
Just post it.
I just wasn't sure if there was too many, if we needed to.
Who would be there?
Well, both.
Well, if policy and B&W was there, that's why.
Yeah, all right.
We just
Yeah.
we just posted as a joint subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah,
I would
whatever. I
think so,
just
too.
didn't want to get us in trouble doing something
covered.
the wrong way.
You're not going to get in trouble, but keep going.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And we're going to take a look at, we have some other things that administration is going to be getting for us between now and hopefully the next meeting, and then we're going to be able to start trucking away.
Cool, thank you. Ms. Codian.
Nothing to report. Our next meeting is next Monday, the 13th.
Monday the 13th. And Susan, policy.
We had a little organizational workshop today, which I think was very effective. We just did a little bit of planning, and again, we're going to meet with budget and warrant, and we meet with Dorothy before the next school committee meeting to finish section I.
Wow, you're just trucking on it.
Yeah. I wonder, Neil, if there's any way you can send that list?
Yes,
Okay.
we're
In
going to forward
advance.
them and put them in the package,
Perfect.
so that, they're obviously part of the public record.
Awesome, thank you. Elise, anything on CPAC?
No, the next meeting is next week.
Excellent. And Lynn, the Facility Advisory Committee?
We had a couple of votes. One was to come forward. Do we have a date?
November 29th, you're on the next agenda.
So I'll let Bob tell you what
Yeah.
we decided to do, and we voted to disband.
So you did your work. Thank you very much.
My minutes are up to date.
Awesome, your minutes are up to date. You know I love that. Any correspondence of note? Consent agenda, assuming that the meeting minutes of October 25th, 2017, warrants of November 10th, 2017, unless there's any concerns, those are good to go. Items for next agenda, it's on the calendar, but I'm just going to read them really quick so you know this is going to be a chock-full meeting. We will be picking up the bylaws again. We have a technology update, we have a pre-K discussion or update, we have a Florence Sawyer School student presentation and annual audit review, and we're going to talk about what our next steps are going to be based on the OPEB discussions that we had. So come prepared for that. Other than that, I think we're pretty much good to go with the regular session. And Steve?
I just have one request that when we have the technology update, one of the big issues that discussed at the conference last week was cybersecurity. The school system was hacked, cost them $100,000 and 4 weeks of work to get everything back going. So I think it should be.
So what's our cyber plan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good one. Okay, Kathy?
Okay, I move that we adjourn the regular session of the school committee meeting and convene into executive session for the purpose of discussing receipt of and response to an open meeting law complaint under purpose 1, receipt of complaint against a public body. The committee will not reconvene to open session. The meeting will adjourn in executive session.
So we need a second. Susan did it, and roll call.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Please? Yes. You're doing this one, right? Sure. She does it. Okay, Stephen? Steve?
Yes.
Lynn? Yes. Mark?
Yes.
Kathy, yes. Neil?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes. What if we say no?
Then you lose.
Good. Thank you, Teresa.